Slickhawk. Hump day.
Yeah, it is.
Another warm, smoky morning. Nothing better than a warm, smoky morning to get you going.
You know what, though?
What?
Everything's going to be all right in about
Everything's gonna be all right,
35 hours.
Well, yeah, because the smoke's going to be gone, supposedly by then.
Nice.
And we've got NFL football.
Yes.
Is that what you're talking about?
35 big hours.
The clock is ticking. You're that excited about Patriots Chiefs?
I'm excited
it's
about
NFL football. I hear you. It could be Jaguars and
Colts.
49ers.
Yeah. Well, nobody gets excited about the 49ers, but
except for that doofus in there,
well.
9 or Nate. He would get excited about the. Well, let's go. What's going on in the world of sports as we wake up on another smoky, warm day. Speaking of warm days, Slickhawk, you remember 24 hours ago at this time I was talking about how warm it was, and in all the years, all the days that I have come into work at sometimes 4:45, sometimes 5:15, sometimes 5:45, but always very early in the morning. I'd never read on my car thermometer that it was 73 degrees before. Yeah. I received a tweet from a listener who linked a story saying yesterday was only the second time in 120 years in Seattle's history that it never got below 70 degrees during the day.
What?
Yeah. Second time over in 120, however long they've been keeping records, that it never got below 70 degrees over a 24-hour span. So it wasn't just me going, God, it's just sticky and awful out here. It feels like Georgia, not Washington. Well, Mariners lose again. They're pushing themselves away from that 500 mark. You would think they're pushing themselves away from the wild card spot, but there are other people around them still losing. So good news there for the M's, but they are not going to win the series against the Houston Astros. They have just one game left after losing last night by a final score of 3-1. Dogs have moved up to 7th in the latest AP poll. USC fell to 6th from the 4 spots. Stanford stayed at 14. Wazoo moved up 4 spots to 20.
Where'd they put Oregon after that win?
74.
Come on.
I don't know. They don't count that low. It's like my daughter. Dad, I don't count that high. Come on, count to 200. I don't count that high. Oregon, they don't count. They don't count that low, Slickhawk.
I don't care who you're playing. 77-21. That's a butt whooping.
They don't count that low. Maybe though. Maybe you rattle off a few more, you might be there.
Let's go.
Hawks announced their team captains for 2017. They will be Russell Wilson again.
What?
Bobby Wagner, Cam Chancellor, and John Ryan. Seahawks depth chart is out. It's trying to look for some interesting storylines there. I think Jeremy Lane listed as a starting cornerback is a fairly interesting storyline that we can talk about. I
don't like it.
I think Mark Glowinski as the right guard is an interesting storyline we can talk about it, which means a showdown question has been answered. Wasn't one of the showdown questions about 3 weeks ago?
Yes.
What is the starting offensive line going to be for week 1?
Yeah.
That means we've got it answered.
Wrong.
I think we're wrong. I think everybody's wrong.
Everybody's wrong.
Yeah, because everybody had George Fant in it. Let's start the show, shall we?
Live from the Carter Volkswagen Studios, KJR AM and KJR FM HD2 Seattle, an iHeart radio station.
Slickhawk is here, 9 and 8 is here, and Hugh Breedlove Millen. A hump day.
Good morning, Dick. How are you?
How's this going for you? It's a few days in a row for you. I know it gets tougher and tougher as the
gosh.
days go on.
I know, I'm just laughing. It's not really radio worthy, but I went to Costco yesterday to get a couple things. I was so doggone tired, I actually reclined my seat and took a nap in the Costco parking lot at about 6 p.m.
It's all right, Hugh. We're almost there. You know why?
Hump day.
Hump day. Okay. I am just not ready. Used to you guys' calendar, man.
And in some ways, as Slickhawk points out, it's hump day, but with the NFL starting up tomorrow evening, it's kind of sort of in a way
The day before.
the day before. I mean, the day before the weekend
Yeah.
starts, you know, even though there's more shows to be done. But your favorite
glorious.
team,
That's
your
glorious.
favorite team and your favorite quarterback will line it up tomorrow.
Yeah.
I'd say in only half jest.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, my family, I got a couple of kids that have locked into Tom Brady, and I think that they think every star in the sky was hung by Tom Brady. So I've been exposed to that for a long time. I quite honestly, I have no idea how so many people are so anti Tom Brady. I if you gave me an essay and say, okay, gun to my head, write an essay. Yeah, I could hit all the items.
Right.
I could hit on every one. So I don't really mean that I don't get it, but I think that I think he is so overwhelmingly a positive part of the sports world. I mean, his response when they put a microphone in his face after a play, he says, "Well, you just passed Joe Montana for the all-time playoff wins in the history of the league." And you'd have to watch it on YouTube, not listen to it, because you'd have to see the sincerity. He's either an actor on a parallel with Laurence Olivier, but he grew up as a Montana idol, and he said, "Look, I'm not even in the same league as Joe, but for you to be in that, to be in the conversation is, I don't want to butcher the line, but there was a humility that I saw that was so doggone genuine. I think he's always been humble. I mean, think of how doggone humble he is, considering everything he's accomplished. But anyway, I'll be on my own island with it if that's what it takes.
Yes, you will.
No, I understand. I mean, I understand where you're coming from. If you can take out the rivalry aspect, if you can take out the
heartbreaking loss in the Super Bowl aspect.
Yeah, but I think Seahawk fans probably had about the same perception of Tom Brady before that ever happened, right? I mean, I don't think the perception of Tom Brady went down in the eyes of Seahawk fans since then. They were probably, but he's, as a quarterback, he's unbelievable. I was looking here. I was going to talk about this at some point today, and this seems like kind of a natural falling spot for it since we brought it up.
Yeah.
But ESPN goes through each and every year where they ask experts. They ask, they have 50 voters, 9 general managers, 6 pro personnel directors, 5 other executives, 5 head coaches, 7 offensive coordinators, 6 defensive coordinators, 5 defensive assistants, 3 analytics directors, 2 quarterbacks coaches, and 2 national scouts, and a partridge in a pear tree.
Yep.
They ask about rank your quarterbacks.
Yep.
And give us the tiers: Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3, Tier 4. Tier 1, obviously the elite of the elite. You can kind of question, where you divide Tier 2 and Tier 3, and then obviously Tier 4 is the bottom of the barrel. Probably shouldn't be starting in the NFL. And Tom Brady was ranked Tier 1 by 50 out of 50. He was the only, he and Aaron Rodgers, the only 2 quarterbacks ranked Tier 1 by 50 out of 50 in all those different walks of football. And there's no question his greatness. I'll add this: the NFL Network does their top 100 players. They ask players to vote, and he was voted by his peers the number 1 player in the NFL.
Yeah, but nobody's questioning his talent. People just don't like him.
There's totally two separate things there. And I would also question, let's say our lasting image of Tom Brady over the last 8 months, 7 months. Our lasting image was Tom Brady throwing an interception, diving at the ankles of the defender, missing. The defender runs for the touchdown, and that is our memory of the Super Bowl. And the Atlanta Falcons end up they were up 28-3, cruising to a 34-13 victory, blowout victory over the New England Patriots, which was very close to happening. I mean, let's very, very close. What would be our perception, A, of Tom Brady going forward, and what would be our perception of the New England Patriots, who are the prohibitive favorites to win this year's Super Bowl again, if that particular game had turned differently, which it very easily could have.
Well, I mean, these matters are temporal. I mean, in September right now of 2017, we'd obviously have a diminished view of him slightly. I think 5 years from now, when he's going in the Hall of Fame, that would kind of settle to the mean, that game, and he'd be viewed as a guy who lost 3 Super Bowls, but he won 4. I played in 7, obviously, and so I think he would still be regarded as the greatest of all time. I think right now my sense is that because of last year's Super Bowl, he's kind of cemented in that role. I don't hear anybody disputing that.
Is that kind of the one that got him to the top?
I think it did. I think in just basically everybody's eyes. I mean,
because it broke the tie. It broke the 4 Super Bowl tie.
It broke the 4 Super Bowl tie. I mean, and you say, well, is there any one statistic that reflects on it? I think it's team statistics, it's individual statistics, and then it's what your eyeballs tell you. I think, for me, it's kind of 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. Mm-hmm. And he's got all of the team accomplishments. He's got, next to, he's either knocking on the door. I mean, he's only 3 wins away from the all-time wins. I mean, yardage, everything. He's in that category, and I would separate him from Montana in this regard. Montana is significantly behind the Mannings and the Favres, and I understand it's a different era, but he played in the 16-game era, and so if you wanted to argue against Montana, obviously Montana's wins and what he did in the Super Bowl is his greatest argument. He was 11 touchdowns, no picks in the Super Bowl, in all Super Bowls, never lost the Super Bowl. So that would be his strongest argument. But he's significantly behind the handful of the Marinos, the Drew Breeses, the Brett Favres.
Because of the numbers?
Because of numbers.
Yeah.
I'm just saying in that third.
Right, okay.
That third
gotcha.
of individual passing accomplishments. So Brady, is at the top of the team accomplishments. He's either at the top or knocking right at the door. If somebody has a lead over him in any of the major individual accomplishments, it's a nominal lead. He's basically a titan when it comes to individual accomplishments. And then what do your eyeballs tell you? Well, your eyeballs tell you that he didn't have Jerry Rice or John Taylor or
right.
He's done it with so many different types of guys. He's done it with people's castaways, Randy Moss, that wasn't the Randy Moss coming off the Vikings. That was a Randy Moss that the Raiders basically couldn't find any use for.
And he turned him into the best wide receiver.
And he had 23 touchdown catch. Yeah. One man, 23 touchdown catches. So your eyeballs tell you that this guy is the greatest, in my opinion. Now that's a very subjective claim, but but as Slick points out, we're talking about 2 different subjects: his greatness, and then we're talking about, okay, is he worthy of being disliked as a major public sports figure? He's at the realm of a Michael Jordan or anybody else, or Ken Griffey in his heyday. He's the equal of any athlete. Tiger Woods. There's no athlete that you can put up in terms of accomplishment that would surpass what Tom Brady's doing. Or if you can, it's not going to be by much, right? He's at the top level.
Of course.
Then you say, in that group, what's the likability factor? As sports fans, I'll tell you what, I watched Michael Jordan through his whole career. I freaking loved Michael Jordan. Mm-hmm. Was he perfect? No, but you know what? There was a humility that I want to see. There was a competitiveness I want to see. Right. What's to dislike about Michael Jordan? And I kind of feel that way about Tom Brady. Now, the one pause I'll have on that, if you want to hammer Bill Belichick about Videogate, that's legit. Then I have no defense to that. The Deflategate, I think, is a bunch of nonsense. I don't want to go in there.
Right. We've heard your take on that.
That's just pure nonsense.
Well, you've got Tom Brady talking about the upper echelon of quarterbacks and athletes and everything in their prime, but who would you say right now is in the upper echelon of supermodels? And I ask you that because I want to tell you about an experience I had last night.
Oh, well, I'll start with Adriana Lima. Okay, she's at the top of my list.
I'm just saying in terms of public perception. I would think that in terms of supermodels right now, Kate Upton is queen.
See, I disagree, but I've always disagreed. But
really
in terms
both,
of
though. It's
the
in terms
public,
of national perception.
Well, yeah, in terms of national perception, I got you.
Or worldwide perception.
Yeah.
And Kate Upton was at Safeco Field last night. And
Oh.
I actually was in the press box for the game. And we could see right down where she was at. She was in the wives section. She was wearing an orange.
She had a Houston Astros hat
jersey.
on. Yeah.
I was just kind of keeping an eye
looking
on it.
incognito.
Yeah, as much as you can, being Kate Upton and having world-class beauty.
You can look pretty incognito with a hat and a big bulky sweatshirt.
Right. But she stuck out like a sore thumb. Everybody knew.
Okay.
So
now can I just, in a friendly way, just kind of rebuke you on that use? Sore thumb. You stick
it would
out.
be a negative, yeah.
Right? It's a negative.
what do you mean?
She said she sticks out like a sore
She
thumb.
just
Like a
sticks.
sore
It's
thumb.
very obvious.
No, I
that
get
was
it.
her.
I know. I'm just.
Bad analogy.
It's a
though,
tiny
is what
little
he's saying.
pet peeve of the use of that.
I mean,
It's
she's
like
in
tip
the
of the
family
iceberg.
section. She's in the Mariners family section,
Right.
And she's in Astros gear.
Okay. So
Okay.
did you
Never
have
mind.
did you have a brush with greatness here?
Well,
Or what-
and
all right,
so I
so-
was just kind of watching what's going on down there every once in a while, watching her, applaud Justin Verlander when he got hit by a screamer, and she
he
was
got
very
nailed in
concerned.
the ribs,
She was
man.
very concerned, and watch her clap when he was okay. So, but I
Sounds
noticed.
like you watched a lot of what she did.
Yeah, he
but
has
I-
no idea who won the game last night. by
Well,
the way.
I was just curious what was going to happen, so I noticed she got up out of her seat. So I was like, "This is my chance." So I ran down, and I was just going to strike up a conversation. I go, and then she's about 8 feet away from me. There she is, Kate Upton, just kind of waiting. You know how if a play's going on, to go back to her seat.
Right.
And so she's there, and I'm 8 feet away.
And you chickened out.
I did absolutely nothing.
What?
My problem, here was my problem. I didn't have a game plan going in. If I had known what I was going to say or how I was going to either get a picture, strike up a conversation like ahead of time, if I
Right.
had planned this out like I should have,
So you just
probably.
been staring at her for innings without figuring, because you never knew. You weren't planning from the very beginning that you were going to go down and talk.
No,
you were just
I was-
ogling, and then at
yeah.
the last second you
I
decided
was
to
like,
make that
wait,
decision
there she
to go
goes.
down.
Maybe I should. Okay, I'm gone. And so I went down there. I was 8 feet away from Kate Upton, which I got a little twitchy. I was shaking a little bit.
So what?
to
What
be
did
honest.
what did you plan? So you didn't
I
have
didn't.
a plan.
I
But
didn't
if-
plan. That was my problem.
Well,
That was
so
my problem.
I
so
guess
if
why
you
did
had
you go
rethink it,
The
down
play
then?
was over, and the right, huh?
Why did you go down if in your mind you didn't know what you were going to do when you got there?
I was gonna do something. I don't know. I was gonna talk.
That's
to her. I
like
was gonna
going
say
to the
something.
grocery store and say,
Yeah.
I really need to go to the grocery store. And then
Right.
you go to the grocery store and you just walk around and you're like, I have no idea what I'm doing here nor what I'm going to get here. I think I'm just going to go back home.
I have done that before, but yeah, very
Well,
similar.
No, I can kind of get it. You want to you want to get down there, see her up close.
Yeah,
See if she's either cuter or not so cute as she looks on in photographs and on
the
TV.
answer is
There's
cuter.
no way
Cuter.
she's cuter in a big floppy T-shirt and an Astros hat than she is in her bikini.
Well, cuter and yeah, she was cuter.
Okay.
She was cuter.
Yeah,
Yeah,
cute. Okay, so she was more attractive.
She just off the charts.
She's just
This seems like a week that we ought to just use our words carefully. So
Yeah.
She's
I'm
off
just
the
saying,
charts.
She's attractive. Okay,
Very, very attractive.
all right. And so then, so you wanted to get, and then you,
I
you
wanted
thought-
I wanted to say something to her, maybe get a picture, and so
And how do you think she would have felt about?
I don't know, because she seems friendly. Like she seems friendly. Like
in
if
all
you
your
approach
vast
her,
experience with Kate Upton. She
no,
seems
just in
friendly.
stuff that you see, she doesn't seem like that. She doesn't seem
No,
standoffish.
she doesn't
She seems
seem
down to earth.
I hear you. I hear
know?
So you could have just said, "Hey, Kate, can I get a picture real quick?"
Right? Probably could have said that. I don't know if I would have gotten one, but I probably could have said that.
She probably would have said yes.
Yeah.
If it was quick like that and it didn't attract a crowd.
Right. But instead, I froze.
Man, that
So-
would look good on Slickhawk
You know,
12 on the Twitter.
I know.
That would have looked real good on Slickhawk 12 on
And
the
there's
Twitter.
not many situations in my life
So-
that I've just kind of frozen.
Yeah, usually
You
you're
froze.
not that
She
type
could
of guy.
she could freeze you. Yeah,
I guess
Well,
so.
I was in Palm Springs years ago. Remember the actress Carol Alt? I think she was on
Yes.
the cover of SI, right?
Yes.
So she was
Tall,
doing,
real
yeah,
real
she
tall,
was
yeah.
doing a photo shoot. I mean, this is decades ago, but I'm a young kid in my early 20s, and you just want to kind of, oh wow, that's Carol Alt. You want to just get close to the action. Now she's in the middle of a shoot, and wouldn't have been appropriate to
just
try,
hanging out on the street. No,
it was an outdoors on a sidewalk, and she's doing a shoot, and obviously they got all the key grips and the lightings and all the people. So, but you're a 23-year-old guy, you want to get as close to that, and you want to say, oh, is she more attractive? Is she that type of thing? But or just I don't know, you just want to get close to the action. So you just wanted to get close to the Kate Upton action. Although as it's interesting when you think of these high profile people, and just what's the way to respond. And the two examples I can give, when I was with the Broncos, when you go out with John Elway, now he had been on the Broncos for 11 years. He was married. When he was out in public, obviously people knew who he was, but he could function.
At that point, they kind of left him alone.
Yeah, they left him alone, and you could see people kind of whispering, "Hey, hey, there's Elway," but he people really didn't come up to him that often.
Right.
The contrast before that, when I was in Dallas, Troy Aikman was 25 years old.
Oh.
He was the reigning Super Bowl MVP. He was single. It's Dallas. And the occasions I went out with him, you felt like you were with a freaking rock star, like Michael freaking Jackson. I mean, we had not that much. That's absurd, but you know what I mean. But the incident I remember most vividly in that regard is we're in training camp in Austin, Texas, and we go out. About 4 of us go out to a restaurant during training camp, a place called the Oasis. It sits over Lake Travis. They ring the bell when the sun goes out. A real famous place in Austin. Nice Mexican restaurant.
Right.
Looking over a lake. And we sit down and everything's fine. And about 5, 8, 10 minutes into the thing, somebody comes over to ask him for his autograph.
Right.
And this is before cell phones were prominent.
Started the stream, huh?
And Troy just kind of, he was a good sport about it, and he just kind of goes, as soon as the first guy loses his inhibitions, the floodgates open.
Mm-hmm.
And
he told you that?
He said that to our
he
table.
Said that to you, yeah.
And now all of a sudden there's literally a line of people to get his autograph, and there might have been a couple people want to take a picture. And, he was gracious. But we had the entire thing of nachos, and he couldn't even partake in the nachos, right? And he was gracious. I mean, it's a cost of the fame and the fortune, and it's just a cost of doing business. And I remember him. He was a big country music fan, and this is before iPods and just downloading stuff. And there was an assistant with the Cowboys. We're standing out in the parking lot. And this assistant is going to the mall to the CD store, and he's talking to him, and he's hey, Dwight Yoakam has a new album. And he goes, yeah. And Troy is so excited about some of these albums that he wants, these CDs that he wants, and he's making this request. This guy's going to go, and he just knows that he cannot go to he knows he cannot go to a exactly. There's Dwight. He cannot go to a CD store, and so it's kind of, so I'm bringing this up, having briefly been exposed to guys that are people that are that famous, and you ask yourself, do they really want in a baseball game to stand there and take a picture with you?
But in a situation like Slickhawk, where you're waiting for the pitch to waiting for the play, it would have been fine, because she could have easily taking a picture with you, and she knows she's not staying there.
Right.
She's going to her seat.
Yeah.
Now, if you would have gone up to her seat, that's a different issue. But right there, she's just waiting for the next guy to make an out, and then she can walk down. So you could have taken a picture. She would have only been stuck in that spot for another 30 seconds, a minute at the most.
Right.
And then so maybe she takes 2 more, and then boom, she's gone. So it wouldn't have been that big a deal.
I think
you would have gotten one, Slick. I think you would have gotten
one.
If
we can all agree that there's a threshold. Now, for different people, it'll be a different threshold.
Right.
There's an annoyance threshold. Call it the annoying famous person threshold.
Yes.
I think had you done that, I think that would have fallen short of that. I think you'd have been okay.
Okay.
But, I don't think it's terribly far from the threshold.
Yeah.
Does she really want to stop, and You know what I mean? And then if it incites everybody else, she doesn't want to be rude. Now all of a sudden she's taking 12 pictures, 15 pictures. Now all of a sudden Verlander, takes a heater off his forehead and she misses the accident, right?
But when she's walking into the stadium at 6:30 last night, in her mind, she knows, hey, I'm going to get approached tonight.
That's why she's
at some
wearing a
point.
baseball hat and a baggy
I
sweater.
know I'm going to get approached. She's not walking in. In fact, if she left at 10:30 last night without getting approached one time, she might have been like, wow, what happened to me? Am I not famous anymore? So there's a certain expectation of that, right? So you could have had your shot, Slickhawk, and you blew it. You blew it.
Maybe not. I don't. Yeah, I definitely blew it. I just froze.
You have.
I don't freeze.
You're in that situation. I have witnessed you in that situation. Hugh Millen has not witnessed you in that situation.
It's a little different.
When Slickhawk goes down Hawk Alley before a Seahawk game, in full regale,
he's the celeb.
God,
Hugh, you don't even know. He and I are in a rickshaw. Yeah. Why did we take a rickshaw? Because we didn't want to walk all the way to the party? Is that what we didn't want to? Yeah.
It was quicker.
Because I was like, hey, are we just going to walk? He's like, Slick's and it's a quarter of a mile up here. Let's take a rickshaw. And every single person, Slick! What's up, Slick? Slick Hawk! Slick. And then we get to the party, and Slick's like in this line taking pictures with people. It is unbelievable.
Now, do people cross your annoyance threshold, your famous person threshold?
No.
Do they?
I don't really have.
You just say,
because once he leaves Hawk Alley, then he's not a famous person anymore. As soon as the first guy
takes a picture with Slick Hawk, they all lose their inhibitions, don't they?
Me and Trey committed John Elway.
6:25 on 950 KJR. Big show today. I've got a very important question to ask Hugh and Slick. And maybe the texters. I've already asked it on my poll on Dick Fain at Twitter. It's a very simple, yet I think important Seattle Seahawks question. We'll throw that out there today. Seahawks at 7 with Greg Bell at 7 o'clock today. You'll hear from Sheldon Richardson, newest member of the Seattle Seahawks. We've got our Fact or Fiction to do at 8:30. Hugh's got something to say, we hope. And a whole lot more, including we might have a little Mike Leach for you, which is always entertaining radio. We'll do that between now and 10 on 950 KJR. 6:34 on a Wednesday morning. Morning montage from the Carter Volkswagen studio. We got Seahawks at 7 coming up in a half hour with Greg Bell. We'll also play some Sheldon Richardson for you, who evidently got pranked by some of his new Seahawk teammates. We'll find out some more about that coming up in the next half hour. Yeah, it didn't take them long. Daily Schnoz at 7:30. A lot of big stories in the world of sports. Do we know where we're going yet? Because I know there's 3 or 4.
We're going to try with Dallas, Boston, and there was one more.
Miami, right?
I'll try Miami.
Big stories in the world of sports. Zeke Elliott, another Boston team getting in trouble for cheating. And then the hurricane that is bearing down on South Florida, causing the Dolphins and the Bucks game to be rescheduled. Maybe for this week, maybe for Week 11. Well, the Mariners, it was kind of like a carbon copy of a couple of days ago. A Kyle Seager home run, gets him right into it, and then the bullpen says, thanks, but no thanks.
Here's a pitch with a runner going, swinging a fly ball, deep left field. Cameron Maben has hit a 2-run shot to give the Astros a 3-1 lead. His second home run as an Astro.
Last night was a night of almost. I mean, I almost got to see a combined no-hitter. I almost met Kate Upton. The Mariners almost won.
The Mariners gave up 2 hits yesterday and lost. 2 hits. 3 runs on 2 hits. Now, my question is this, and I was thinking about it at the time last night. Why, if you were to rank the Mariner relievers on a list from now 1 to like 15 or however many they've got on that team with the 40-man roster, where would Simmons, Garton, Pagan, and Pazos be on that list?
Pazos marginal.
Okay.
Pagan high.
Okay. But not like 1, 2, or 3 high.
Well, are we including the closer?
Yeah, I'm talking about just relievers. Overall,
I would put
bullpen
Diaz, Vincent. That's weird to say.
Yeah, it is weird to say.
Probably Pagan.
Okay. I mean, that was a close game throughout. And all I'm saying is I don't really think the best guns were used in a game that you really, really need to win, and that it's 1-1 in the 7th, and you end up losing 3-1.
Pagan has been pretty much lights out.
Yeah. No, he's been good. He's been good. It's been the only issue I've had with Scott Service all season, because I think overall Scott Service has done a hell of a job with all the curveballs he's been thrown this year, and to get them to the playoff race this late in the season is amazing. I've just never been able to get into a vibe with how he uses his bullpen.
Who would you have liked to see in the 7th there instead of Angel Pagan? David Phelps is on the shelf now.
Yeah. Zick still out?
Zick, I haven't seen Tony Zick in a while.
Well, if he's healthy, I would have liked to see him.
He was getting destroyed.
I would like to see him.
I mean, he's been pretty bad.
I think experience matters. I mean, it was
a 9-pitch at bat. It was a really good at bat.
No, it was great at bat. It was almost as good at bat as Robinson Cano had at the beginning of the game, where I thought he was literally going to stand there for 3 hours and just foul pitches off. That was unbelievable.
I think he also broke 2 bats on that at bat as well.
It was crazy.
Maben, I mean. So
Cameron Maben, the game winner. He breaks up the combined no-no with a game-winning home run. To the NFL, Antonio Brown talks about Le'Veon Bell's holdout.
To see bickering over $1 and $2 million when we in the $1 billion industry, sometimes it's disgusting. And I never knock a player for wanting to get paid, because the things that players endure and go through, is crazy.
Players are always going to stand behind players when it comes to contracts, aren't they, you?
Yeah, I think so.
Always going to stand behind players.
But, if he's getting an extra $2 million, that's $2 million less for him and everybody else on the team.
Yeah. Jerry Jones asked if he expects Ezekiel Elliott to play on Sunday.
I don't want to make a comment, and y'all can imagine with as much we got flying around the courtrooms and the basic hearing rooms. So that would be one that I'll pass on this morning. I'll have more news for you as we get into the week.
The latest on that story is that his 6-game suspension was upheld by arbitrator Harold Henderson, but he is still eligible to play on Sunday, and the Players Association is also seeking a temporary restraining order to block the suspension, and that ruling will come down on Friday. Now, that's what happened to Tom Brady, right? Did they get the restraining order to postpone it because he was supposed to be suspended 2 years ago for Deflategate, and instead he played the whole year and was suspended at the beginning of last season?
Okay.
So I'm assuming that it was the temporary restraining order that got it pushed. Forward. So we'll find out more, because we're trying to go to Dallas for the Daily Schnoz. Cam Newton says he believes Colin Kaepernick should be on a roster.
Do I think Kaepernick is better than some of these starting quarterbacks in this league? Absolutely. Should he be on a roster? In my opinion, absolutely. There's no question about it. Is he good enough to be on a roster? Is he good enough to be a starting quarterback? Absolutely.
Slickhawk and I disagree with that. Excuse me. We disagree with each other. I agree with what Cam Newton just said. Okay. Slickhawk, not so much.
Well, Kaepernick said 2 things.
Cam Newton said 2 things.
Cam Newton, excuse me. That he's good enough to be a starter, and he's good enough to be on a roster. Those are 2 different.
I'd answer yes.
Well, he's definitely good enough to be on a roster.
I'd answer yes to both of those questions, because I see some of the starting quarterbacks in the NFL, and I've seen Colin Kaepernick play and lead his team to a Super Bowl and multiple playoff appearances.
I think his talent is diminished, but he should definitely be on a roster. Absolutely.
Should he be a starter? Is he good enough to be a starter? If he had never taken a knee, would he be a starter in this league?
I don't think he's a starter.
Yeah,
but
probably.
I think he's a good backup.
Where would he be?
Where would he be?
Starting?
Yeah.
Well, like I said, I don't think he'd be a starter, but
it'd have to be a team that's got no quarterback and still has a chance to win and thinks they have a chance. New York would never, because New York's not trying to win. How about Houston instead of going with a rookie? Team that's a playoff caliber team.
Well, they're not going with a rookie. They're going with Tom Savage.
Yeah, but I'm talking about if they would have signed him 4 months ago, 3 months ago.
I think they'd still be going with Tom Savage.
Because he's better than Colin Kaepernick.
I think that's what they think, yeah.
I think there's some teams out there that have quarterback issues that still
the
deem
Dolphins,
themselves
people
as
say, what about Jay Cutler?
Right.
Remember, he had worn that shirt apparently supporting Fidel Castro, and that's going to be a problem down in Miami.
Jay Cutler did?
No.
Colin Kaepernick.
I
don't even remember that.
Yeah, it was a couple years ago.
Okay. Supporting Fidel Castro, huh?
Well, a T-shirt that ostensibly supports Fidel Castro,
Okay.
yes.
Yeah, that wouldn't fly in Miami. Ray Lewis says the Ravens leadership was going to sign Kaepernick to a contract until his girlfriend tweeted out a racist image of them.
I can disagree with how he did it. That should be perfectly fine. Then his girl goes out and puts out this racist gesture and doesn't know.
To be clear, whose girl? Whose lady?
Colin Kaepernick. That she doesn't know. We're in the back office about to try to get this guy to sign. I don't talk to the people who can't get things done. I go to the decision makers. And the decision makers in this one was Steve Bisciotti and Ozzie Newsome. And the only thing that went bad was that image where she tried to make us a racist individuals. And that's the sad part about this story.
Well, yeah. You
I'm
can't have a rogue girlfriend tweeting that stuff.
Yeah. He's comparing Ray Lewis and Ravens owner Steve Bisciotti to Samuel L. Jackson and Leonardo DiCaprio's characters in Django Unchained.
Which I have not seen.
I have not either.
But it's on my list.
Jackson plays a loyal slave to DiCaprio's racist plantation owner. The tweet was addressed to Lewis and has not been deleted. It was retweeted more than 4,000 times. So that's the tweet he's referring to. Kevin Sumlin talks about Texas A&M's regents' comments that we talked about yesterday.
I'm frustrated about a lot of things. I'm not real happy. I'm sure there's a lot of things being said about this program, and our focus is on us. That never changes. So I'm not in the business of really paying attention to anything outside of this program and or comments, whether good or bad. My focus is on what we can do to be better, and I really don't have time to get involved in what things that are said about the program or about me or whatever. I've just never been that kind of person.
Hot seat. Speaking of hot, Machado, a walk-off home run.
Breaking ball, fly ball, left center, way back there. Manny has done it. Machado, a two-run homer. Wave it bye-bye. Machado walks it off. The Orioles in the win column.
Hurts the Mariners. They go to 71-68 with the win over the Yankees. Jose Ramirez, 2 home runs. The Indians win their 13th in a row.
Breaking ball swung on, blasted. Deep left center. This game is tied. A hanging breaking ball, and Jose Ramirez has done it again. A solo blast, 4-4 game.
You got a 12-game winning streak in the National League with Arizona and a 13-game winning streak in the American League with Cleveland. Joe Girardi talks about the potential of technology in baseball.
Well, they just don't know how comfortable people would be with like an earpiece, and then someone has to have something to talk, and could you text it between two guys? I don't know, but there has to be something, because I sure the heck don't want to be holding up large signs and flipping the signs around, and I don't want to be doing that.
And Brett Gardner asked about the Red Sox stealing their signs.
Do you feel like they've stolen signs over the course of this year and the last series in Boston?
It's possible. I think that's part of the game within the game is trying to steal signs from the pitcher and the catcher, and little things like that, like base runners peeking in from first base and trying to get signs from the catcher or whatever it may be.
One of the big stories in the sports world, the Red Sox cheating, another Boston team to be cheating. Surprise, surprise. It always seems like it ends up there in the Northeast with either the Patriots or the Red Sox.
What was the nature of the cheating?
The nature of the cheating was that the Red Sox were receiving videos They were getting information from videos of the signs onto their Apple Watches in the dugout.
Okay.
So therefore, the technology makes it cheating.
Yeah.
So
I agree.
You know what Hugh needs, Slickhawk? Hugh needs a Hugh-mobile, and I will explain what he needs to purchase in the next segment coming up on 950 KJR. From the San Diego Union-Tribune, Hugh Millen. I think you'll like this story. Do you like Phillip Rivers?
I do.
I really like Phillip Rivers. I've always liked Phillip Rivers. By Kevin Acey, the Union Tribune reporter. As the 73 toll road turned into Interstate 5 in San Juan Capistrano and then Clemente sped by unseen, Phillip Rivers and Kellen Clemens watched tape of the Denver Broncos defense and then a little of the San Francisco 49ers defense. It was the last Monday in August, the return leg of the first round for the Rivers Mobile, an SUV that has been gutted and turned into what the Chargers starting quarterback calls the best quarterback room I've ever been in. Yeah. The season opener against the Broncos was 2 weeks away, and there was only so much preseason tape can help, even with the trip going faster than expected. They clicked over to catch up on the news they were watching on ESPN when the SUV slowed to take the North County exit that would deliver the Chargers' QB1 and QB2 to the Rivers driveway just before 5:40 p.m. An hour and 18 minutes, Rivers said later, which is nothing. There may be some days when we're actually hoping to get a little traffic to get more work done. This is how Rivers, a Charger since 2004, didn't even have to relocate his home, even though his team did. In order to remain a San Diegan, Rivers invested in just about the most L.A. vehicle ever. 3 days a week during the season, he will make the commute from his San Diego home to the Chargers' Costa Mesa facility. It's a trek many know too well and dread, but Rivers will do it different in a more efficient manner. Essentially, his mode of transportation is a mobile man cave with the seats like those in a first-class airplane set side by side. Plenty of room for a 6'5" quarterback to fully recline while watching film on the 40-inch television screen separating the front seat and the rear cabin. Satellite TV, Wi-Fi, a refrigerator for upwards of $200,000 plus a driver's salary. Anyone can make the freeway melt away.
Yeah.
Hugh, come on, man.
Oh, yeah.
Get yourself a driver, the Hugh Mobile, and instead of staying up until 2 o'clock in the morning every Monday morning after a Seahawks game, breaking it down to come in and talk to us on the Monday morning quarterback, just finish up your last 45 minutes on the road, man.
You know, I'm looking at this picture, and I mean, opulence. I mean, this is first cabin. It's beyond first cabin, right? But you know, I was drafted to the Rams. This is, of course, a long time ago, and that SoCal traffic, it's real. I mean, and you know, some of these towns, Costa Mesa. We were in Anaheim at the time, a couple blocks from Disneyland, and I had a house in Huntington Beach, and you know, there's just traffic all the time everywhere. But this is brilliant. Now, the only downside I could see on this is that maybe the people in L.A. and Orange County are going to say, well, he's not really trying to fit in the community. But if you look at his family dynamics, I think he's got like 8 or 9 kids, right?
He's got a huge family.
He's got at least 8 kids. And so he's trying to not uproot his family. He's not in this league for long.
Right. It's not like he's 25. And,
and I think it's a brilliant idea. I absolutely, he describes, he says, hey, I'm trying to juggle 2 objectives, my family life and not trying to turn them over, but my need to do my job and prepare the way. And he goes, this is the solution. And he's dead right. This is brilliant. I'm total.
I love it.
I think it's great.
And let's face it.
And they were talking about a guy who's made
San Diego or L.A. Where would you live?
He's made over $150 million bucks, I think. I mean, I know Eli's a little over 200. Brady's close to 200 million. I think this guy's. I know he's north of 100 million.
Yeah.
He's so for $200,000 allows him to, he gets to keep it when he's done. I mean, it's you don't have to just watch football tape.
Right.
You get
to keep the
so,
car.
I'm sure one of those 8 kids is going to have fun with
Very,
it. So,
very cool.
Good on Phillip Rivers.
Seahawks at 7 comes up next. We'll see if Greg Bell's got the Bellmobile, which takes him to Renton each and every day to cover the Seahawks. And you'll hear from the newest member of the Seahawks in the next segment, about 4 or 5 minutes of Sheldon Richardson when we come back on 950 KJR. Rolling into hour number 2. I've recharged. I've had my banana. I'm ready to roll.
That's all it takes, huh?
That's all it takes. Banana at 7 and coffee at 7:30. I should really eat more for breakfast, but you run out of time when you're doing this. What's going on in the world of sports today? Quite a bit, actually, for a Wednesday. Mariners lose to the Astros. They get help from some yesterday, no help from others, like the Angels and the Orioles.
And the Mariners.
And the Mariners. Mariners did not help. Hawks have announced their team captains. They will be Russell Wilson, no surprise. Bobby Wagner, no surprise. Cam Chancellor, no surprise. And John Ryan, probably no surprise either. You need a special teams captain. Hawks depth chart is out. A couple of the interesting names on the first team. Jeremy Lane listed as starting cornerback, opposite Richard Sherman. Mark Lewinsky, starting right guard. Ezekiel Elliott, 6-game suspension upheld by arbitrator Harold Henderson. He is still eligible to play on Sunday. Players Association also seeking a temporary restraining order to block the suspension. That ruling will come down on Friday. And the Dolphins-Bucks game has been moved out of Miami due to the impending hurricane, may be pushed back to Week 11. Tyrod Taylor's going to play for the Bills. He's passed his concussion protocol, and former Husky wide receiver John Ross has a sprained knee, likely will keep him out of the first 2 games. Ian Rappaport, not Rappaport, Slickhawk.
Well, if you just say his name right.
is reporting that Andrew Luck may miss the entire month of September. Packers have signed guard Lane Taylor to a 3-year, $16 million extension. Are we ready for a little G Bell? All right.
Get out of your mind! Get out of your mind!
I don't know if Greg heard the last segment, but we talked about Phillip Rivers' mobile, Greg, that has allowed him to not relocate to Los Angeles. He's got a $200,000 Suburban with a 40-inch screen and a refrigerator and satellite television, and I'm wondering, what does the Bellmobile look like to get you to the VMAC? Do you have a driver and a TV so you can break down all the thing? You can do all your story writing on the way to the VMAC, on the way home from the VMAC?
I think you know the answer to that one. I'm guessing Phillip Rivers would be in violation of Washington State's distracted driving law with a television that big.
I don't think he's driving. He's got himself a full-time dude to worry about the traffic.
Yeah, the full-time dude that drives me to work and back is me. So, like every other person that I know and to and from Seahawks. Yeah, I did see that story, and yeah, good for him.
I know, it's great. I
resources to do it.
I think it's fantastic. Before we talk about things like depth charts and team captains and pranks and things like that, the most important thing going on in Seahawk world is the scuttlebutt about this new logo. And it's not being very well received on social media. I saw it for the first time last night. My first opinion of it, I thought it was a joke. Like, I thought, I read, some of these tweets and making fun of it, and Deadspin came out with a story, and I was like, oh, okay, well, the Seahawks don't have a new logo. And I looked at it, I was like, that's not their new logo. And sure enough, evidently they do have some alternate logo, like you're looking at the Seahawks straight on instead of sideways. So people don't like it much, Greg. Doesn't sound like anyway.
No. The best representation I saw of it was online. Was somebody juxtaposed the new logo head on with Sam from the Muppets.
Yeah. Yes. I've seen a few. I've seen Bernie Sanders. I've
come on.
seen a Bernie Sanders, like, kind of head down, the shape of the head, very, very similar to the picture of Bernie Sanders. I have seen that Sam the Eagle that you mentioned, but let's just hope we don't see it a lot. It's not like I hate it. It's just.
Well, how often did you see the last alternate logo?
What was? I don't even know what the last alternate logo was.
It was the full wings out.
Oh, holding this football in his talons.
How often did you see that?
Yeah, not very much. So I don't think maybe it's not that big a deal.
It's not.
Long as we keep the real logo, which I think is one of the best in the NFL, we're fine.
As long as no one buys it, then we won't see it. But if they start marketing it,
people are going to buy it. Kids are going to love it, I think.
That would be unfortunate for kids and for us.
It's just the regular logo. You're just looking at it straight on in 3D. What's wrong with that?
There you go. Well, let's get on to the important matters at hand, Greg. The depth chart is out for week 1, and a couple of names that kind of popped to my eye that I think we probably figured would be there, but certainly was a question mark a week or two ago. Jeremy Lane at starting cornerback, and Mark Lewinsky at right guard. Were those the two kind of things that caught your eye as well, or is there a name that I missed in there?
Well, one thing first, Dick. I will say this. The depth chart is produced by the Public Relations Department to just fill in some of the media packet information. The coaches, Pete Carroll actually makes fun of the depth chart. And
okay.
Makes fun of the fact that no coaches or anyone in football ops produces it. It's more of a guide for television and people who don't cover the team every day. So that's one. It's useless.
How often is it wrong, though?
Quite a bit.
Okay.
I mean, there's like 20 starters in any given year that you know of. But if the coaches are going to make a change and a move, they're not going to put it on a depth chart released on Tuesday. They're going to wait till the game and roll it out. And if there's a guy who's questionable to play,
sure, with the injuries and stuff.
Sure.
But it's not really an indicator. So seeing Mark Lewinsky at right guard means absolutely nothing when it comes to Sunday.
The actual depth chart itself that we get to see on Tuesday released, if I run out of toilet paper, I could use the depth chart. It's absolutely useless.
Okay. All right.
Now, but there's some truth to this one because, yes, Pete Carroll has indicated that Mark Lewinsky most likely will start at right guard. I thought him starting at Oakland was an indicator of that. Ode Abushi continues to compete for the right guard spot. Pete Carroll said as recently as Monday. I think they're going to go with Lewinsky, and all signs have pointed to that here for the last couple of weeks. Jeremy Lane, especially against the Green Bay Packers, Jeremy Lane's going to play nickel, and Shaq Griffin's going to play outside at right corner when Lane's at nickel, and I expect the Seahawks to be in that 65-70% of the time against Aaron Rodgers. Now, there'll be other games that it's more 50-50, but over the last couple of years, more than most games, the Seahawks have been at least 2/3 of the time in nickel, so they can put Lane there for the veterans' preference, but the actual practical matter is it's going to be both Lane and Griffin on the field most times Sunday.
Gotcha. We saw the captains announced: Russell Wilson, Bobby Wagner, Cam Chancellor, John Ryan. How do those? Is that a coach's decision, or is that simply a player's decision?
It's a player's vote. I'm sure the coaches have a veto power if somebody they don't think is ready for that role. But, yeah, it's a player's vote, and those guys are the most prominent ones at their positions on the team.
And you have four. We have one on offense, two on defense, and one on special teams. Is that normal?
No. It was three last year, just Chancellor. So it must have been a tie in the player vote, or sometimes the organization wants to acknowledge someone else themselves. They might fudge the vote a little bit, but it is supposed to be a player vote, yeah.
We're going to hear from Sheldon Richardson here in a couple of minutes and what he had to say to you guys yesterday. What type of stuff, what type of pranks was he referring to that he said, man, it didn't take these guys long to start playing pranks on me when I got here to the VMAC?
Well, he said specifically he didn't want to get into it, and the other players had already adjourned into the locker room where we weren't allowed to be in on Monday for the day, so I didn't get to follow up on exactly what the prank is. So to keep it G or PG rated here, I'm guessing maybe they made him pronounce what gooey duck or puyallup was. I'm sure it was a little more risque or cutting to the bone than that, though.
What was the connection with Pete Carroll and this kid from USC, Jake Olson? Can you tell that story? Because I saw a bit and piece of it, and I'm sure a lot of people aren't familiar with the situation.
Jake Olson was Pete Carroll first befriended him when Olson was about 10 years old. about 10 years ago, 10 or 12 years ago. And Olson, at the time, was a friend of the USC program, and Carroll brought a lot of people around,
right.
Superstars, celebrities, of the like. After Carroll had already met him, Jake Olson lost his eyesight to a rare retinal disease. And in that time, he had told Pete Carroll, he didn't say anything about football. He said he wanted to go visit the Augusta National Course and play in the Masters someday. And that as this retinal disease was taking hold and his eyesight, Jake Olson's eyesight, was deteriorating, he said, Coach, I want to go to Augusta before I lose my eyesight completely, so when I do lose my eyesight, I can go win the Masters. And Pete Carroll said that that's indicative of the Jake Olson spirit, and the guy is going to be able to be this huge success in life because of his spirit. And flash forward to once he lost his eyesight, he continued to come around. He lost his eyesight at age 12, and he continued to come around the USC program. And flash forward to Saturday, Pete Carroll knew that Clay Helton, one of his successors at USC, was going to try to get Olson into the game against Western Michigan. And when the game became a blowout at the end, they did get him in to be a long snapper, and he long snapped, and with the assistance of his teammates and officials. And Pete Carroll said, watching it on television on Saturday, he was crying, and he couldn't stop crying for a kid that he's known for a decade now, getting to do that. And it was a really cool moment. I was watching it at the time. I thought it was a really cool moment for what Western Michigan did. And nobody rushed on the extra point. It was a snap for the extra point of a 49-31 game. And nobody from Western Michigan rushed. They just stood there when Olson snapped the ball, and the kicker kicked it through the uprights, and they helped guide Olson back to the sidelines. And a really cool moment of sportsmanship for both sides.
I didn't even know you were allowed to do that. Just bring a guy on, put him in a jersey. I guess Texas A&M did. That's where the 12th man came from, right? Yeah. Where they pulled him out of the stands. So I guess if you choose, you can pretty much have anybody come out in a USC jersey and play a play.
Yeah, fortunately they haven't done that with Snoop Dogg yet, but they do. In this case, they went to the officials, Clay Helton did, before the play and explained what was going to happen, and the officials went to Western Michigan. It may have happened before the game. That game was close all the way deep into the fourth quarter, so they weren't doing it then. And then once the USC got ahead comfortably, like I said, that was gracious for Western Michigan to comply, and that's what they did. And so the Carroll spoke at somewhat length. The most emotional he talked about anything in the last couple of weeks.
Well, the press conference today at 12:30, which you will be in attendance for. What are you trying to find out today? Anything in particular?
I want to know if Thomas Rawls is going to play on Sunday.
That's a good one.
Thought that the other day, like I mentioned to you yesterday, I was a little surprised that Carroll didn't just come out and say yes, Rawls is playing. He said he wants to see Rawls practice Wednesday and Thursday before making that determination. Of course, Rawls hasn't practiced or played here in the last couple of weeks because of this ankle injury that they haven't fully detailed, other than to say he just got an ankle. And then Carroll also said that he needs to wait till Friday to determine if all those guys that went for the Regenikine treatment last week are going to be fully back and ready to go. And you're talking about Cliff Averill and Michael Bennett and Tyler Lockett and Luke Jokel. I mean, that's a hefty part of your equation on both sides of the ball. There's no indication that they won't play, but the Seahawks and Carroll have so far been guarded against fully saying they will.
Well, we will have a lot of news to get from you tomorrow at this time, won't we?
We may. And Carroll likes to play this who's available for games pretty coyly, especially against teams he plays a lot, like Green Bay. This is the fifth time since 2014 these teams have played. So, yeah, I don't expect him to come right out and be unequivocal,
right.
But we'll also see for the first time this season a practice report at the end of practice today, which will give an indication of how much these guys participated in particular roles.
Great stuff. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
Thanks, guys.
You bet. Greg Bell joining us for our Seahawks at 7. And we mentioned Sheldon Richardson, the newest member of the Seahawks, held a little press gathering at the VMAC, and here's how it sounded.
What was your reaction to the trade? Did you know? I mean, you sort of had an inkling something might happen, but what was your reaction when it happened?
Came out of nowhere. No called me into the office. Told me I was traded. Flight out there tonight.
When you heard Seattle, what did you think?
Not really. They already had a dominant defense. Just coming in, contribute, help his team get W's.
What did you know, if anything, about the locker room environment, the guys on the team, what it's like out here?
I didn't know anything about it. Just coming in, embracing whatever the guys do, embracing the culture around here, and just taking it from there.
We saw you at Safeco the other night with Justin. What's he been able to tell you about what to expect joining this group?
They laid back, chill, but they work. They compete in everything, and ready to get after it, pretty much. Just caught up a long time. Visited with his family. Seen him since college, so it's been a while.
From what you know or what they've told you, is your role going to be similar to what it was at the Jets?
I'm playing 3, so I don't know.
Jets only 3?
That's it.
Okay. Do you like that?
Stat.
I mean, last year they had you playing some linebacker, right? I mean, do you like that? Do you like that better? I mean, last year they had you playing some linebacker in New York.
I mean, I play football, I love to play anywhere on the field as long as I'm playing, but my home is 3 technique, so they know where I'm best suited at, and I'll make the best of it.
You just said this defensive stack. Just how excited are you to be a part of that line and that whole group?
Very excited. The organization itself, just excited.
What is it when you look at what that defensive line can do now with you joining Michael Bennett, Cliff Averill, Frank Clark, and what you guys can do as a pass rush unit, everything what excites you? When you see that?
Everything about it. Just watching those guys on film get after it. I feel like I can fit right in with that. Other than that, just compete. The effort they give on every play in and play out. You can't find that too often in the league like that.
Pete Carroll recruited you out of high school?
Yeah, he did. He was late though. Who was first? Miami was first. Coach Hurricane got me first. I right out of high school. I was going to Miami.
So did you? How serious did you get with USC and Pete then, or was it serious at all?
I'm serious. I was more serious with Lane Kiffin than with Pete. He called me like mid-February, like February 1st. Somebody wanted to offer me. I said that I would, but I got to sign on the 4th. It was too late. It was hard to tell him that, but perfect.
What's your time been like in Seattle so far?
It's been real relaxed, actually. I don't know really where to go and nothing to do, really. The only thing I did was go to the baseball game with Justin, and other than that, I've been in the hotel room in the playbook.
What's your relationship like with Justin?
Close-knit. Nothing. Hit the ground running. Picked up where we left off since college. Still my brother. That's it.
You mentioned in the playbook. How tough is it to learn new defense and be on the field?
It's more so the terminology. More so than anything, plays are kind of the same, similar. Other than that, it's just terminology.
At this point in your career, how big an opportunity is this to win a championship?
You got a good opportunity here. Plan to make the most of it.
You had said Seattle that approached you maybe a couple months ago. I mean, that you thought maybe you'd be traded here a couple months ago if you took a salary cut. Did you take a salary cut on that? Was that?
I did. I let my agent handle that. I play football. That's it. That's how real simple, man.
Yeah.
Real simple.
So you didn't pay attention to the rumors that were out there.
If it happened, it happened, man. I was a Jet. I'm not a Jet anymore, so I'm a Seahawk now. That's just how it goes.
What do you know about the locker room that you're joining now in Seattle?
These guys are crazy. In a good way. But everybody's laid back. Everybody's family. They're real big on that. And I'm used to a locker room like that. Let's just come on in and be a part of the family.
What makes you say they're crazy? What have you seen that makes you say they're crazy?
Team meeting's nuts. Team meeting's a little different. They got me today. Cracked a little joke on me. Team meeting. Don't want to go into it. But it was fun. It's fun. Fun environment.
You got a jump shot?
You have a jump shot? I got a little chop on me. Little jump on me. Let it loose. I'll show you sometime.
You'll be a free agent at the end of the year. I mean, do you think about that? About what your long-term future could be? Or
let the Lord take the wheel on that one.
What's your what are your feelings at a time in New York and how it was?
You said what?
What are your feelings now looking back your time with the Jets?
It was fun. Team that drafted me. Met some great people along the way. Met some people who I liked and I didn't like. Other than that, still family. So that locker room still my brothers. Keep in touch with them. I will. They know I ride with them for the rest of my life because they looked out for me in tough times. In my tribulations and trials and stuff like that. So I'm gonna miss them. But on to new endeavors.
Was there ever a time that you feared they wouldn't? They might give up on you after those?
At one point, yeah. But other than that was like 2 years ago. But other than that, they kept it honest with me. I can't ask for nothing more than that.
How did things get sideways with Marshall?
How? No comments on B. Marsh, man. Leave that in New York. Let that lie.
No comment on that. Brandon Marshall evidently had a little run in there. He called the Seahawks crazy in a good way. I think that would be a good way to describe the Seattle Seahawks. Crazy in a good way. That's Sheldon Richardson, the new 3 technique of the Seattle Seahawks. And, just one of the reasons I would imagine that the answer to this poll question, I put up a poll question, Hugh, on Twitter, at Dick Fain, and I'm a little bit surprised at the results. Are the Hawks a better team than they were last year prior to Week 1? And I'm kind of looking over the lineup. It was Curse and Lockett and Baldwin as your wide receivers. It was Jimmy Graham, your offensive line of Fant, Glowinski, Britt, Affetti, and Gary Gilliam. First game of last season. The defense pretty much the same as it is now, except you're inserting Sheldon Richardson, taking out Big Rubes. You're inserting Jeremy Lane, taking out Deshaun Shedd. So a fairly similar starting lineup, different backups, but 90% have said yes thus far. 90% say that this is a better team now than it was last year at this time. Now, we know it's a better team than it was in December last year, because anytime you have Earl Thomas out and the injuries that they had, Tyler Lockett out, that was a shell of itself team late in the season. But you think it was better? You think it's
better now than going
last year at this time? Yeah, going into Week 1 last year. I guess would have been the Miami game.
Is
right?
that our impression of where we were in Week 1, or what we came to learn about?
No, I think our impression of where we were standing last year at this time, what were we saying about this team last year at this time, their chances of winning a Super Bowl, their chances of winning division. I think where we look right now at this roster versus where we looked last year at this time.
I think Sheldon Richardson makes the defense better. Of course, some of the guys are a year older. The older, maybe Michael Bennett. At some point, somebody's going to slow down with that defense, right? Offensively, we came to learn that the offensive line wasn't very good. I can't imagine that they're going to be worse, because they were pretty bad. And even Tom Cable has said that. Just listen to his interviews. He's more or less said, "Hey, we stunk." Now, he doesn't use that word, but if you listen, that's essentially what he's telling us. So, you got a quarterback who's a year older, healthier. Of course, he was healthy going in.
He was healthy going in.
I'll go with better, slightly better.
Slightly better.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's probably where I am as well. And I didn't want to put, the option. I just wanted to find out yes or no first and foremost. Maybe we'll put a different poll up there later saying, okay, are they significantly better, moderately better, or just slightly better now that we have such a lopsided vote. But you can vote at Dick Fain on Twitter. 724 on 950 KJR. We've got some big stories coming up in the Daily Schnoz. We're trying to get to Dallas to talk about the Ezekiel Elliott situation. Miami's got that huge hurricane coming, which is forcing the postponement of the Dolphins-Tampa Bay Buccaneers game. You've got Apple Watch Gate in Boston between the Red Sox and the Yankees, all coming up on 950 KJR. Daily Schnoz time, right at 7:30, right when it's supposed to be. We're going to Cleveland to talk about the hottest team in baseball. I thought we were talking, Slickhawk, I thought we talked about the hottest team in baseball yesterday at this time.
You mean we talked about the Diamondbacks?
The Arizona Diamondbacks, but
not quite.
They're a close second to the 13 games in a row won by the Cleveland Indians. And Anthony Castrovents joins us from MLB.com. Maybe he can give us a little bit of info on the Applegate story as well from Boston. Anthony, how you doing, man?
I'm doing well, guys. How are you?
We're doing well, and I'm sure you're well versed in all the things going on in Major League Baseball, working for MLB.com. But let's start with the Cleveland Indians. 13 games in a row. They're now 26 games over 500, 11 clear of the Twins. They're going to win that division without question. What's been the difference of the good Cleveland Indian team that we've seen the first half of the season to the great Cleveland Indian team that we have now?
Yeah, exactly. They really settled in on the pitching front, I think, in the rotation. And they've gotten great performance from Corey Kluber since the beginning of June when he came off the DL. He missed most of May.
Mm-hmm.
But everything beyond him was somewhat ragtag. Carlos Carrasco had a good first half. But they just kind of dealt with some injuries and just some inconsistencies. And I really think that group has kind of settled in. Even with Danny Salazar was on the DL for a couple weeks there, came back last night. Now, he was not very good last night. He didn't have his command. He didn't get out of the first inning. But other guys have really stepped up. Josh Tomlin came off the DL the other day. He was good. Trevor Bauer's been really good. And Carrasco has been more consistent here of late. So I think it all starts there. It's kind of the rotation they expected to have a year ago. When they famously got through the playoffs with, like 2.5 starters. But,
right.
This year, a little better health here in the second half. And, in the first 12 games of the streak, their starters had like a 1.5 ERA. So I really think that's the difference.
And they're outscoring. I think I saw they're outscoring teams by an average of 5 runs a game.
Well, that helps too.
I mean, this is not. It's not like they're squeaking these games out 3-2. They're just blowing the doors off of their opposition in every single one of these games. Their run differential's gone from like a +40 to a +186 in the span of 2 weeks. That is just amazing. So when you look at this American League, Houston had been the team to beat all the way through. Well, now Cleveland's going to end up with maybe even a better record than Houston, and certainly the hotter team than Houston going into the playoffs. Yeah. Who is the team to beat in the American League now?
Well, we'll see. I mean, they're the hottest team today, and then 2 weeks from now we could be having an entirely different conversation. That's just the way baseball goes. But yeah, I mean, to your point, that's often how it works. The hottest team going in kind of rides that out, or a team just kind of finds a way to get hot just in time. But yeah, I think you'd have to consider the Indians maybe the team to beat right now, and not just because they're on the streak, but just because of what they've done relative to some injury situations. I mean, they're doing this right now without Michael Brantley, their starting left fielder, without Jason Kipnis, their starting second baseman, without Andrew Miller, who was of course so huge for them last year at this time. So there's reason to think that they're great now and going to get healthier and even better going into October. Now, does that necessarily carry over? Of course not. You have no idea, but they certainly have great depth, and but the American League picture is really changed here now. Justin Verlander going to Houston. He looked so good last night. We know the Red Sox can get hot at any moment. The Yankees can get hot at any moment. So it's going to be fascinating. There's not, and even I was about to say, it's not like the National League where you have one clear, super team in the Dodgers, but even the Dodgers have played back down to earth here in the last week or two. So it's always changing.
No, I think the playoffs look very intriguing now with hot teams like Cleveland coming up, hot team like the Diamondbacks coming up to make some noise against LA potentially in the playoffs, and then the sidebar with what is it with the city of Boston? I mean, at first it's it's Spygate, and then it's Deflategate, and now it's Apple Watch Gate with the Red Sox. What do you think the Major League Baseball penalty will be for the Red Sox stealing signs using their Apple Watches in the dugout?
Right. I honestly couldn't tell you what the penalty is going to be because it's a first of its kind, but obviously we saw with the Houston and the Cardinals situation where Houston pilfering information from, that was a front office level, but I don't know if it's similar to that where, maybe, the draft picks get affected, but I don't know. It's hard to say exactly, maybe a fine, but it's certainly an original one because while stealing signs has always been a part of baseball, Bobby Thompson's home run, that was a product of stealing signs. This is obviously a new level with technology, and it's an unavoidable level. Technology infiltrates everything. So I don't know if it's maybe a situation where this just happens to be the team that got caught. Maybe it's going on more than we know or care to know. But I know Dave Dombrowski made some comments about the Yankees currently being investigated for their own sabotage. So we'll see what develops from that. But I kind of enjoy it, frankly, because it's such a part of the game, and it's just funny now to see it kind of taken to another natural level, with the proliferation of technology.
Hey, Anthony, appreciate the time.
No problem, guys.
You bet. Anthony Castrovents, MLB.com, talking about the Indians' hot streak as well as the weird situation in Boston. You can go
Here's
ahead.
Another
That's
late
fine.
development. The Daily Schnoz.
Our old friend Skylar Dixon in Dallas. Ezekiel Elliott, it looks at this point like he's going to play on Sunday. The question is he going to play all season long? Is he going to have to take weeks 2 through 7 off? What do you know, Skylar? Thanks for joining us again. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing
that's
well.
Where it stands right now. He will play this week, and it's up in the air on after that.
And that is going to be determined. We're going to get some clarity on that on Friday. Is that correct?
We should, yes. The judge yesterday said he would rule by Friday on the temporary restraining order / injunction that Elliott's people are seeking. If they are successful, then this is probably going to play out a lot like Brady did, where he'll play this year, and then we'll see what happens after that. He would likely, based on precedent, he would sit for the first 6 games of next year. But again, that's getting a little bit ahead. That's just kind of looking at how things have gone down with some of the previous ones, and I think the Brady one is a decent example, although the timing is a little bit different.
Now, I thought I read where it was a players' association seeking the temporary restraining order. Is that not correct? Is it Elliott's people, or is it the NFLPA?
Yeah, it's both. The NFLPA is doing all this on behalf of Elliott, is the technical way to put it. But there are people on Elliott's team who are, as much in there as anybody else. So they're just sort of working together, if you will.
Where are we on the judicial side of this case, on the criminal side of this case?
Well, this is all civil. Everything that's going on right now is civil. There is no criminal side to this case. That was settled last year when prosecutors in Ohio decided not to pursue the case.
Okay, but there still is a civil disagreement, a potentially monetary, money could be exchanging hands from one side to the other.
Well, yeah, this entire thing is based in a civil proceeding, if you will. The complaint itself is in civil court, in civil federal court is basically what it boils down to. So yeah, at its very base, this is all the civil matter, and of course, one of the arguments on the Elliott side is that part of the irreparable harm is a financial component of it. In other words, if this suspension sticks, he loses guaranteed money, right? Substantial amounts, millions of dollars in guaranteed money.
Yeah, I saw $2 million this year, and then his whole contract becomes non-guaranteed, right?
Right, exactly. It basically, if he were to get injured, all the guaranteed money that he signed in his original rookie deal is sort of out the window. So that's one of their arguments.
How well is Dallas prepared to play without Ezekiel? There's a couple familiar names still in that backfield, even without Zeke.
Yes, I think Darren McFadden is the first name. There'd be a little bit of Alfred Morris, but all indications are from the preseason that McFadden's going to be, the first guy. I don't know that you'd necessarily call him the workhorse guy,
right?
But he's going to be the first option. He's going to get the most carries, and both of them are proven. But McFadden is a little bit more recently proven, if you will, because when they had kind of their disastrous 2015 season and they waited until 6 weeks in to give him the job, he was pretty good once they gave it to him. He had a 1,000-yard season. So I think they feel pretty comfortable with him, and I get the sense that the game plan doesn't change much with or without Elliott.
Finally, we were asking the question here on this show pertaining to the Seahawks, whether people thought they were a better team now than they were last year at this particular time going into week 1 of the regular season. A little different situation with Dallas because you really had no idea what to expect of Dak Prescott going into week 1, and you found out that he was a very good quarterback. But aside from the quarterback position, and aside from the Ezekiel Elliott mess, let's just take a look at the rest of the football team. How do they compare right now to where they were last year at this time?
I think you start with the defense, and the defense is such an unknown that it's hard to say that they're a better team than they were last year. They might be, but they've got a lot of young guys that need to make plays for them. That they drafted these guys believing that they were improving the playmaking component of their defense, which clearly has not been very good the last couple of years. They just haven't been able to make those sort of game-changing plays that they need. So it starts there. And Sean Lee is a very good starting point, but some of these other guys have got to come through. Jalen Smith, we've all talked about his injury and how is he going to be. He's sort of the X factor. Can they get a pass rush, et cetera, et cetera. So I think it starts there. On the offensive side, I think the key component is Des Bryant because this is the first off season that he's had since his All-Pro year in 2014, and there's something to be said for that. Whether it was unhappy with a contract or a contract situation or injured. He just has been sort of idle the last 2 years, and you feel like it's spilled over into the regular season a little bit. So he's healthy. He and Dak have had a year now together. Obviously, a year ago, as good as Dak was, there's still, chemistry issues and things like that. Des had had Tony Romo his entire career. So they've grown a little bit. So I think the offense, has a chance to be really good, and I think they showed it in the preseason. But the defense has got to start helping out, if you will.
Well, it's going to be an intriguing division to keep our eye on because it doesn't appear like there's a truly elite team in the division, and it really doesn't appear like there's a terrible team in the division either. So you could have 4 teams with 3 weeks left in the season still with a chance to win the division. So it's going to be fun to watch. Thanks, Skylar.
All right, take care.
You bet. Skylar Dixon joining us from Dallas. Story number 2. We're going to head to Miami next.
Avalon, the 2-time host of the U.S. Open qualifying and host of the Pacific Northwest PGA Championship, is a splendid 27-hole layout that's well worth the short drive to the beautiful Skagit Valley. Avalon Golf Links is one of the most unique and beautiful public golf clubs in Washington, overlooking the picturesque Skagit Valley and offering panoramic views of the Olympic and Cascade Ranges. Avalon boasts 3 exceptional 9-hole layouts that together make up one of Washington's finest golf experiences. Come play Avalon and see what the buzz is all about. Make it a 27-hole day by visiting AvalonLinks.com.
Important bulletin from the United Press. Flash.
The Daily Schnoz.
Oh man, it's happening again after the horror that we saw in Houston a week or 2 ago, and now apparently another major metropolitan area is going to get battered by Mother Nature, and we head down to Josh Friedman. The ticket in Miami, 790 the ticket. And Josh, first and foremost, have you got your battle plans ready? Have you got your escape route ready? And how are you staying safe down there?
I think we're going to stay in our house. I mean, it was built after Andrew. It's up to code. And right now, keep your fingers crossed, the storm is tracking east a little bit, so up off the east coast of Florida. If that happens, we won't have a direct hit, which is good for a lot of people here.
No, that would be very good. Let's send that puppy right back out to see where it came from, all right, and see if it can die out there in the North Atlantic. Well, with all that's going on, obviously sports takes a back seat, but we are intrigued as to what is going to happen in week 1 of the NFL season, where ironically you've got 2 Florida teams playing each other, and with Miami and Tampa Bay. And you also have 2 teams that have the same bye week, coincidentally enough. So does that provide an easy out, or is it not as easy as just throwing them in a game on week 11?
Well, the NFL decided they are going to play week 11.
Okay.
Neither team wanted that. It's going to be November 19th down here in Miami. Now the teams are going to play 16 straight games without a break. That's why neither team wanted it. They would have preferred to play in a neutral site this weekend. And there were a lot of close venues. Jacksonville, Atlanta, Carolina, New Orleans all had open stadiums. Pittsburgh, Philadelphia. They could have played anywhere, and despite the team's objections, the NFL decided they were going to play in Miami on November 19th.
Why would the Dolphins? Why wouldn't they just prefer to host a guy? I understand playing 16 consecutive weeks. However, you'd be giving up a home game, and you're supposed to get 3 points for playing at home, and they would be going from a home game on opening day, which you think the fever would be exciting, and potentially would be again on week 11. But you'd be giving up that to go and just play on a neutral site. I'm a little bit concerned, a little bit wondering what's the better advantage for Miami, and I'm thinking maybe playing week 11 at home is a better advantage for Miami than playing a neutral site week 1.
Oh, look, I know until 1990 players played 16 consecutive games,
right.
and the older time players might look at them and say, stop complaining. But it just, they would like the break on the body for their players. They would just like a little bit of a break in the middle of the season to have their players have a chance to rest, as every other team will have now, except the Dolphins and the Tampa Bay Bucks. So call that a little bit of a disadvantage, and that was the main reason the Dolphins wanted to move, and the Bucks too. They want to play this weekend. Now, the NFL determined yesterday there was going to be no game in South Florida this weekend, not Thursday, not Friday. So the only choices were a neutral site this weekend or the game on November 19th. And the NFL decided they ruled the latter is preferable.
And I'm assuming there's really not going to be any football games played in South Florida. The colleges,
No, as a matter of fact,
are they going to play?
University of Miami. No, the University of Miami. I'm glad you brought that up. The University of Miami was going to Arkansas State to play them, and that game was canceled because officials were worried that UM would have trouble getting back here on Saturday. So that game's been canceled. There's no way to reschedule it for this season. So UM will only have 11 games, and big one the following Saturday. That's up against Florida State. So, yeah, a lot of high schools that normally play Friday, they're going to play tonight. So a lot of things have been scheduled. Now, the Dolphins, since the players have no game this week, they gave the players the rest of the week off. And a lot of the players right now are trying to get flights out of town.
Yeah, I would imagine with them and their family. Well, Josh, please stay safe, and
thank you.
Best of luck to you. Our thoughts and prayers are going to be with all you guys down there in South Florida, all right?
Thank you very much.
You bet. Josh Friedman from Miami, the ticket. Much more important things going on down there than worrying about week one of an NFL season. That is your Daily Schnoz for a Wednesday.
Well, that's the news. I'm out of here.
The Daily Schnoz, brought to you by Michael's Toyota of Bellevue on Sports Radio 950 KJR.
I'm going to revisit a topic we brought up briefly in the 6 o'clock hour and get Hugh's take on the rankings of these quarterbacks that the front office personnel, the offensive coordinators, the head coaches, the defensive coordinators came out with. We just talked about the top two. Where does Russell Wilson land on that list? We'll talk about that in a few minutes. Hugh's got something to say at 8 o'clock as well. We've got our Fact or Fiction contest at 8:30, all coming up on 950 KJR. I was handed something by Slickhawk here, Hugh, just a few moments ago that is disturbing. Unfortunately, not surprising, but very disturbing. And I feel like I need to read it on the air here. And we can we'll have plenty of time to get your take on it here in the next segment, but really only have time in this segment to read this open letter by Seahawks defensive lineman Michael Bennett. It says, "Dear world, on Saturday, August 26th, 2017, I was in Las Vegas to attend the Mayweather-McGregor fight on my day off. After the fight, while heading back to my hotel, several hundred people heard what sounded like gunshots. Like many of the people in the area, I ran away from the sound, looking for safety. Las Vegas police officers singled me out and pointed their guns at me for doing nothing more than simply being a black man in the wrong place at the wrong time. A police officer ordered me to get to the ground. As I laid on the ground, complying with his commands not to move, he placed his gun near my head and warned me that if I moved, he would blow my bleeping head off. Terrified and confused by what was taking place, a second officer came over and forcefully jammed his knee into my back, making it difficult for me to breathe. Then they clinched the handcuffs on my wrists so tight that my fingers went numb. The officer's excessive use of force was unbearable. I felt helpless as I lay there on the ground, handcuffed, facing the real-life threat of being killed. All I could think of was, I'm going to die for no other reason than I am black and my skin color is somehow a threat. My life flashed before my eyes as I thought of my girls. Would I ever play with them again, or watch them have kids, or be able to kiss my wife again and tell her I love her? I kept asking the officers, what did I do? And reminding them that I had rights they were duty-bound to respect. The officers ignored my pleas and instead told me to shut up, and then took me to the back of a nearby police car where I sat for what felt like an eternity until they apparently realized I was not a thug, common criminal, or ordinary black man, but Michael Bennett, a famous professional football player. After confirming my identity, I was ultimately released without any legitimate justification for the officer's abusive conduct. I've always held a strong conviction that protesting or standing up for justice is just simply the right thing to do. This fact is unequivocally, without question, why before every game I sit during the national anthem. Because equality doesn't live in this country, and no matter how much money you like, what job title you have, or how much you give, you are seen as an N-word. When you are seen as an N-word, you will be treated that way. The system failed me. I can only imagine what Eric Garner, Michael Brown, Trayvon Martin, Tamir Rice, and Charlena Lyles felt. I have retained Oakland civil rights attorney John Burris to investigate and explore all my legal options, including filing a civil rights lawsuit for the violation of my constitutional rights. Sincerely, Michael Bennett. We'll take a quick time out. We'll get Hugh's thoughts on this. We'll get Slick's thoughts on this and my thoughts on this next on 950 KJ. Rolling into the final 2 hours of the big show before Chuck and Puck at 10 o'clock today. What's going on in the world of sports? Well, I read to you what's going on with the Michael Bennett situation. We have just received word. We have just received a letter from Michael Bennett that we will discuss in just a moment. But first, I want to remind you the Mariners lost yesterday to drop to one game under 500, 3 games out in the playoff race. 3-1 the final score to the Astros. They try to avoid the sweep. Just the way it's been for the Mariners. Up 3, down 3, up 4, down 4, up 5, down 5. That's just a bizarre season. I guess in the end, when you have seasons like that, you end up at 81 and 81. I really thought it would be better, but it's not looking that way. Dogs have moved up to 7th in the latest AP poll. USC fell to 6th from number 4 with their shaky performance against Western Michigan. Stanford stayed at 14. Wazoo moved up 4 spots to 20th. Ezekiel Elliott, 6-game suspension upheld by arbitrator Harold Henderson. He is still eligible to play, though, on Sunday. A temporary restraining order is being sought by the Players Association to block the suspension. The ruling will come down on Friday, and we just received word during the schnoz that the Dolphins-Bucks game has been moved to Week 11, which was both teams' bye week. So the Miami Dolphins and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers will play 16 consecutive weeks in the NFL season. But Hugh Millen used to do that all the time. So Hugh used to play 16 weeks.
Well, I actually was part of a team that experienced the same thing. It was I can't remember which one of the Hurricanes. We were supposed to play the Dolphins in Week 1, and it got postponed, and so we had our bye in Week 1.
And then you ended up playing.
I have experienced this exact situation.
But that's when there was a bye, because part of your career there was no bye weeks,
correct?
Right, and part of your career there was. So this was after the bye weeks were instituted.
The bye was in week 12, and we were supposed to play at Miami in Week 1, and they had a hurricane, and they postponed it, so we had a bye in Week 1, and then we played instead in Week 11. Or whatever,
so you just happened to have the same bye week as they did?
You're not getting this.
No, I'm not getting this. Because how about the Dolphins? Like, didn't they already have a game on week 11 or Week 12 whenever you played them?
Yeah, I think that we both had we had to.
You had to have the same bye week.
These are the facts I know.
All right.
I know that we were scheduled to play the Dolphins in Week 1. I know we did not play the Dolphins in Week 1.
Okay.
And I know that we played them instead on what was our scheduled bye. So maybe it was an AFC East thing at the time. I was with the Patriots, right? So,
well, they kind of. I mean, I'm wondering what would have happened if they were playing a team that didn't have the same bye week as them.
Yeah. Well, it's more likely that they wouldn't, right? I mean, it's opposite
absolutely.
Right?
I mean, I guess they would have had to just simply play it this week and move to a neutral site. Just move to wherever, whatever stadium. And our schnoz guest was talking about all the stadiums that were open that were on the East Coast. But more pressing matters than that, at least on the football side of that. The letter that I just read, Hugh and Slick, Michael Bennett, who has been very, very outspoken about. It's very ironic that the person that has been as outspoken about police violence towards African Americans in the entire NFL is the victim of apparent police excessive use of force. According to his story, what are some of the first things that struck you about this letter I just read?
Well, I think the first thing that strikes me, I feel very bad for Michael Bennett for having experienced this. Whether he's a football player or whether he's just a citizen, whether he's black or whether he's white, whether there was racial components to this incident, I just feel bad that he experienced that because nobody wants to experience that, right? Mm-hmm. As it pertains to his statements, hey, maybe this is fate intervening. and stealing him and resolving him to be more outspoken, and that this gives him a platform for having experience, and maybe that's a productive thing. I will say this. There's a couple things here that we're hearing one side of the story.
Mm-hmm.
And, he's inferring that there was racial motivation, which, look, I'm inclined to agree with him.
Right.
I'm inclined to agree with him, but there are some unanswered questions here and some facts that for me to be convinced that he's right, I'd have to have some questions answered. I'll give you an example. I built a house out in Snoqualmie, and in the process of the framing, I got an architect and everything. I had already bought the property, but it was one night. It wasn't terribly late, 7:00 at night. It was in the winter, and I'm kind of out there just looking at the framing. And all of a sudden, I get this blinding light in my eyes, and get the F out of there, right? And get your hands up, and I'm like, I remember saying, "Are you serious?" And he says, "When we have our effing guns drawn, we are serious. Get your effing hand," right? Next scene is I'm on my knees with my hands clasped behind my back, and this light. I mean, I have no idea if there's 10 people or 2 people or one person. I have no idea. I just have blinding light, and they get on your knees, get your hands behind your back. So I'm on my knees, clasping. Guy pulls my wallet out, ID and what have you. And, I'm getting sworn at, I'm getting this and that. And in the end, the situation kind of diffuses. Now, it wasn't as serious. I never had a knee in my back, and I was not handcuffed.
Right. But a neighbor evidently saw you wandering around and called the police and said, "Hey, there's a guy wandering around this new house."
Right. So at that point, I didn't know if it was a cop or whatever. I just assumed it was a cop because I was told to get my hands up.
They never identified themselves as police officers?
Nope. Never said this police op. Nope. And I remember thinking that could have been a thug. Now, I don't want to draw too many parallels here, but when I read this, I don't know exactly what Michael Bennett did. Okay? I know that there's shots fired. And it's a very threatening situation. Had there been gunshots around the situation that I experienced, where maybe I would have been on my stomach getting a knee in my back as well. It's obviously a very life-threatening situation in the eyes of the police officer. I don't know what Michael Bennett did. If it was Cassius Marsh in the exact same situation, are we certain that this would not have happened to Cassius Marsh? I don't want to be naive. I don't want to be naive to say, but I also don't want to just jump to the conclusion. If Johnny Cochran were representing the police officers, it's entirely possible he would read this statement and he'd say, wait, whoa, check. How are you inferring a state of mind? What proof do you have that it's just about you being a black person? How do you know that wouldn't have been the exact same thing? Shots are fired. Maybe it's just a big dude. Maybe Michael Bennett said or something. We already know his predisposition. Look, I think Michael Bennett has been eloquent in all of his statements. I think he's been inspiring. I don't agree necessarily. I'm kind of a little bit on the fence on whether or not the sitting down. I'd probably say no, don't sit down. But I think he has been extremely eloquent in how he has laid out his cause. And I think it's great that he's championing the cause. Mm-hmm. But for him to make statements about the inference, he's going to have to provide proof that this was indeed the motivation was him as a black man. Again, I don't want to be naive. I'm inclined to agree with them. I want to repeat
this is a serious charge he's throwing out here. I mean, it's very descriptive and it's very serious.
Yeah.
It's a group of people, a seemingly large group of people, and he claims that he was singled out. Guns were drawn on him, and this treatment was issued to him amongst this group of people. So with him, obviously, I mean, I think we all can pretty well assume that he wasn't up to no good. He wasn't firing guns or doing any, if we assume that, and we take him as where there's a large group of people and he was the one that this happened to.
Do we know he's the only one?
I don't know that he was the only one.
We don't know.
Do we know what he said or how he may have looked? We already know he's predisposed to be cynical about the actions of police. Did he say anything that could have been deemed as derogatory to bring attention to himself? Maybe there was 8 other guys who were down on the ground and 7 of them were white. Again, I just want to hear the other side of the story. And it's
what I want to know.
But hang on. I don't want to. I mean, because here I'm in this position. I don't want to be naive to a very traumatic and serious plight and condition that are afflicting African Americans in our society. And I want to be entirely supportive, and I want to be completely in a state of unacceptability with regards to real actions that are racially motivated.
Right.
The potential problem is if we just say all of it, what it does, it kind of negates the ones where there's real proof and there's real crimes and there's real right. And so maybe maybe this incident is in that category. In fact, I'm inclined to say it probably is.
But we don't know
But
yet.
this is such a serious allegations here that for me personally, before I render a judgment, I'm just the guy in the court of public opinion, I would just want to have a couple of those questions answered that I just laid out. How do I know for sure this would not have happened to Cassius Marsh? How do I know what Michael Bennett's action was in that situation? How do I know that there weren't 6 or 8 other guys who didn't get a knee in their back?
I accept Michael Bennett as an intelligent man.
I agree.
And I think he can discern, the difference between something that would happen to everybody and being singled out. I mean, it's not like he, went and, told his buddies, he's telling his buddies about this or the guy at the end of the bar. He put out a statement and is taking legal action. His lawyer, 5 minutes after this went out, put out the release of legal action that they're taking against the Las Vegas Police Department. So this is a serious matter in his mind.
Oh, of course.
Serious enough that he's going to sue for his civil rights.
What I don't know, and Hugh says he's got a couple unanswered questions, and I have a very simple unanswered question. It says, Las Vegas police officers singled me out and pointed their guns at me for doing nothing more than being a black man in the wrong place at the wrong time. That is the sentence that I continue to go back to when I read this whole thing. And what I want to know is why those Las Vegas police officers singled him out. Is it possible that those Las Vegas police officers on their radios heard, shots fired, we have a suspect with the description like Michael Bennett? Now, does that not, even if that's the case, that does not, I do not condone how Michael Bennett was treated.
Right.
But it may explain why Michael Bennett was singled out in a group of people if he resembled a suspect.
Well, and this, I don't know, and this kind of brings up another point for me. I wonder how far this process would have gone if Michael Bennett wasn't Michael Bennett. If they didn't realize that this is a high-profile professional athlete. True. If this is Joe Blow down the street, and does he go downtown? Is he booked? Is he charged with a crime that he didn't commit? How far would this have gone had they not pulled out his wallet and seen, oh, this is Michael Bennett, Pro Bowl defensive end for a Super Bowl champion team?
And the reason that I go to that they thought Michael Bennett was a suspect is, I mean, this accusation that the police officer placed a gun near his head and warned me that if I move, he would blow my bleeping head off. I mean, that to me sounds like a police officer that thinks he has the shooter right there. I mean, that does not, I mean.
Why does he think that?
Yeah, that's
if
exactly
it's just because it's a rant.
And that's the question. Does he think because it meets the description of what they said the shooter was, or like Michael Bennett is accusing, just because he's black and they're assuming that the shooter was black? Now, those are two completely different things.
That's the line they use, isn't it? I mean,
but that's slick. do you understand that there's a potential lack of cohesion behind the effort to resolve some of these social issues if we just knee-jerk jump and just assume, yep, absolutely, that had to be, right? Don't you think it's responsible for us to ask a few of these questions? Because then we can single out. Then when we get situations where the evidence is clear that there is racially motivated injustices, then we can be entirely behind that. We can get 100%. I don't care who you are. We can we can unite and say, listen, this has to stop, right? But if we're just,
it depends on how we do it, and it depends on how we do it and what goal we're seeking. If we are just picking apart, picking apart holes to scrutinize and say, well, that's probably not true, and that's probably not true, and where's your proof there? I don't really like that. Now, information gathering and getting all the information. I'm of course we're all going to be in the search of truth, I think, and getting all the information possible.
Is this statement alone from Michael Bennett enough for you?
Enough for me to what?
To conclude that he was unequivocally a victim of a racially motivated conduct by the police.
I believe him when he says he was. Because you know the difference. You know when you've been a victim of racially motivated either hatred or abuse or whatever. You know. That's something you know.
You know how?
You experience it, you know. It's happened to me. It's now happened to him. It's happened to many people of different ethnicities in this country, and if you're just being treated a certain way because it's a heightened situation, a dangerous situation, and if you're being treated a certain way because of your race and because of an assumption that you're probably doing something wrong.
If I was black in that situation where I'm walking through a framing house and I would have been on my knees and the guy would have been clasping my hands and swearing at me and everything and if I would have been black and if I would have assumed, well, they wouldn't have done that to a white dude.
It's exactly what you have thought.
What have I known then?
He would have known unequivocally that he
would have been.
I don't know
if I would have been saying,
would jump to that
I'm just a black man going through a framing, and they're making assumptions about me, and so I was then, instead of somebody coming up, a white dude, they would have come up to a white dude and they would have approached it differently. They would have said, look, who are you? I need to know why are you in this house? And they would have engaged me in a more civil conversation as opposed to swearing at me and shining a light in my face, telling me to get on my knee. If I would have been black, would have I been able to assume they just did that because I'm black?
You might have. I think it's a different situation when you're a single person, being instead of being singled out of a group. Yeah. You're a single person in a situation where you've been probably reported by somebody as a prowler, and I'm assuming that's probably the case, right?
I don't know, or maybe the cop was just driving along the road and he sees somebody, in dark.
Now,
going through
regardless of the situation, what they did with you was excessive. That was excessive regardless of the situation.
Right.
But obviously there's no racial undertones there.
Yeah.
But if it happened to me, if it was there, am I necessarily thinking that it was because I was black? No, I'm not drawing that conclusion.
I believe
so that's what my question was. How do you know? Is it things they say? Is there words that they say where you're now concluding that I'm being a victim because I'm black? Or is it and by the way, I'm not naive. I understand it happens by the hundreds of thousands, and believe me, I know. But I just want to know. I'm
just saying every situation is different. But if it's happening to you, you know it. You know it.
Well, I believe it happened. I believe Michael Bennett believes everything he wrote in here. I'm just trying. I'm shutting my eyes and I'm envisioning the scene. And I'm envisioning a scene of shots fired, people running, and then a group of police officers tackle one guy and bring him down and stick. That's what he infers in here.
That's my point.
He infers in here that he's one guy that got singled out of 100 people.
So here, listen, we're either on Michael Bennett's side here, or we're asked to he's obviously calling into question the police tactics of the Las Vegas police.
Well, I think we can be on Michael Bennett's side and still question exactly what happened.
I understand.
I mean, that's where I'm at. I believe Michael Bennett. I'm on quote unquote Michael Bennett's side, but I still have a lot of questions.
Exactly. I'm inclined. Standards of proof. You got in criminal court, you got beyond a reasonable doubt. There's also a reasonable certitude. A moral certitude. That's another standard of proof. In civil court, it's preponderance of the evidence. What we talk about, 50% plus a feather. As I'm sitting here in the court of opinion, I can tell you that I'm at least 50% plus a feather. Okay?
Yeah.
But I am not at beyond a reasonable doubt that he was a victim.
Right.
I think he was probably a victim of a racially motivated incident.
I agree.
But until I'm not jumping into beyond a reasonable doubt. I'm not jumping into a shadow of a doubt, which isn't even a legal burden of proof anyways.
Right.
That's right. So am I am I reasonably certain? I want to say dead. Am I reasonably certain this couldn't have happened to Cassius Marsh? Well, answer a few of those questions, and I'll tell you whether that could have happened to Cassius Marsh.
Right.
If it's a big dude,
with tattoos all over him, Cassius Marsh might have gotten tackled.
I'll tell you what. I have this. This is what we have right now.
Right.
I have this.
Okay.
I'm not a court of law. I'm not a court of law trying.
But you're in the court
I'm
of public opinion.
That's right.
It says "Dear World."
That's right.
The letter says "Dear World."
That's right. I'm not a court of law, so I don't need proof beyond a reasonable doubt.
What if
I have this?
What if
I have stories that I read every week, every month about what happens all over this country.
Right.
I have those stories, and I have this.
Is there any facts?
What if you didn't? What I choose to believe.
What if you didn't have
that this happened?
What if you didn't have this, and all you had was a police report from the Las Vegas police concerning Michael Bennett down on the ground, and he's being investigated?
Why would we even have what for?
No, I'm just saying that there's got to be some documentation of this incident on the police side, correct? Do people just stick a gun in a guy's head without ever writing about it and about ever filing anything?
If he wasn't charged with anything,
No.
he was just let go. I don't know how that works. Maybe there's paperwork.
Is there
maybe
any
there's not.
facts? For example, let's suppose that a facts were to be brought out that that we could hear a 911 call, okay, and then we could identify the caller. Let's make the caller black. A 911 caller says, "Hey, shots were fired. Big dude with kind of a big black guy with short. How do you describe? I don't want to use the proper improperly. How do you describe Michael Bennett's hair?
It's just I don't know. I don't know what adjective you use. He's got his hair. It's
okay. Yeah, with
mini
longer
afro.
curl.
He's got a mini afro.
Okay, a mini afro. Okay, big black guy with a mini afro. And let's say that caller, the 911, you would later find out it's a black person or what have you, and the police are getting this dispatch, shots fired, the suspect fits this description. Would that change your opinion at all? This is hypothetical.
Because that's the first thing that jumped into my mind. I want to let you think about it. We got to take a quick time out, okay? We're going to come back to this. Okay, we got to take a quick time out. We'll come back to this. We have Fact or Fiction as well, which I'll do very briefly in the next segment. We got to give you an opportunity to win $1,000. We'll come right back to this right here on 950 KJR. Back to our Michael Bennett discussion in just one moment. Sometimes we take more time for the Fact or Fiction than other times, and right now probably isn't the time to take a ton of time for it. But I've been doing some research, Slickhawk.
Okay.
I've got a few games in the hopper for this week that I like. I'm trying to figure out which one to use for today, but I think I'm going to go to the old Super Bowl loser. The Super Bowl loser rarely comes out and has a very good year the next year. Now, the Seahawks were a decent exception to that. They ended up making the playoffs. They ended up, I think, winning 11 or 10 games the year after losing the Super Bowl, but nobody's ever lost a Super Bowl like the Atlanta Falcons lost the Super Bowl. And the Atlanta Falcons are on the road in Chicago a team that's got a good running game, a team that spent a whole lot of money on Mike Glennon. And the Bears are getting 7 points, a full touchdown at home. I think the Falcons kind of come in sleepwalking a little bit to that game. It's not a division game. It's not against a high-priced opponent. I think the Bears will be fired up. Give me the Chicago Bears at home +7 for our fact or fiction. And you have 12 minutes right now at 49451 to text in simply fact or fiction. That's it. If you think if you agree with me that Chicago Bears will cover that spread +7, then say fact. If you think I'm full of crap, say fiction, and you will be entered to win the $1,000 weekly prize that will be randomly selected at the end of the week. And you will also take your first step towards the $10,000 grand prize. Our thanks to our friends at the Emerald Queen Casino for providing all this cash. What did you say it was? How much?
Cubic butt ton.
Cubic butt ton of cash
from the Emerald Queen
presented
Casino.
by the Emerald Queen. 12 minutes at 49451 here on 950 KJR. Q, sorry I cut you off before we had to take a time out and get to our fact or fiction, but you were about ready to either ask a question to Slickhawk or make a comment to Slickhawk before we went to the break. So I'm gonna let you follow that up. You remember where you were?
Not exactly. But I just think that, in civil court, you have the prosecution goes first. Okay? And if you're a jury member, you should be convinced of the prosecution's case. You should be. They've presented all the evidence for them. And then it's after the defense brings their case, then you decide, again, preponderance of the evidence, then you decide what is more probably right. So right now, we should absolutely be of the mind that Michael Bennett was not just a victim of excessive police conduct, but it was racially motivated because all we have is his side. But I think there's some I don't know. I just think that maybe I'm just too naive. I feel like, and I know that police misconduct, racially motivated misconduct happens by the scores and the hundreds and what have you. A lot of planes fly every day, and we tend to think about the ones that crash. We don't think about all the ones that fly and land. And so I don't know what the percentages are. I don't know if it's 1%, 0.1 of 1%, 10%, 60%. I just don't know. But I think if we're going to, in a court of public opinion, just lay out the police department here, I just want to hear both sides. That's all. Mm-hmm. I just want to hear both sides because there could be some important things that are omitted that the Las Vegas Police Department would want us to know before we just, in essence, in the court of public opinion, convict those members of the Las Vegas Police Department.
I want to reset here for those that are just tuning in. I'm not going to read the whole letter, but Michael Bennett has released a 6 or 7 paragraph letter describing what happened to him on Saturday, August the 26th. That was the night of the Mayweather-McGregor fight, and he was in Las Vegas. Basically, the Cliff Notes version of this is that he claims the Las Vegas police officers singled him out after shots were fired, and in a big group of people, that they singled him out, pointed their guns at him for doing, quote, nothing more than simply being a black man in the wrong place at the wrong time. And then he goes about describing, the fact that he was threatened to be killed by the police officer, where the police officer said that if you move, I will blow your bleeping head off, as he was on the ground with a gun to his head. He then was a knee was forcefully jammed into his back. He accuses that. He says the excessive use of force was unbearable. He says the handcuffs cut the blood circulation to his hands. He accuses that they ignored his pleas. He says nothing of them giving him his Miranda rights. He said he kept asking the officers, what did I do? And reminding them I had the rights that they were duty-bound to respect. The officers ignored my pleas and instead told me to shut up, and they took me to the back of a nearby police car where I sat for what felt like an eternity. Those are the accusations levied against the Las Vegas Police Department by Seahawks defensive lineman Michael Bennett. And I completely agree with you in saying that I've got Michael Bennett's side, and I believe Michael Bennett's side. I believe he was the victim of some sort of excessive force by the police. What I need to know is, why was he singled out? We know why Michael Bennett thinks he was singled out. He clearly states, I was doing nothing more than simply being a black man in the wrong place at the wrong time. So, before I can believe that, which I'm totally okay believing, I need to know why Michael Bennett was the one, and if he was the only one, put to the ground by police officers.
Why? Why do you need to know that before you believe that?
I believe he was put to the ground right now.
No. Why do you need to know those pieces of information to believe that Michael Bennett was
put to the ground,
a victim of racial injustice?
Because I need to know if there was a description of the shooter that the police were looking for, and if they matched the description of Michael Bennett. Therefore, the police would have a right to put him to the ground. They still wouldn't have the right to say, I'm going to blow your effing head off. They still don't have the right to not give him his Miranda rights. They still don't have the right to mistreat him the way he says they're mistreating him. That's a total separate issue. But to put Michael Bennett to the ground, if he matched the description of the shooter, if there was a description of the shooter, then I need to know that.
Isn't that always the story? Well, he fit the description. I mean, that's the story. That's what they always say. You fit the description. Sorry, if they even care to say sorry.
Well, we should be able to find proof of whether there was a report of a description of a shooter.
So, I'll say this: John Burris, who is the legal counsel that Michael Bennett has retained, he works primarily in civil rights cases.
Mm-hmm.
He's been a lawyer for more than 40 years, practicing law, generally in California. He's been doing this a long time. And for them to take the legal action they're taking, I would have to think that he would not take that case and take those steps, the lawyer I'm talking now, the experienced lawyer, without feeling like they had sufficient proof and an actual claim and a case.
I think they have a claim and a case, period. I think they have a claim and a case regardless. Because I think if the police came out and said, yeah, he fit the description of the shooter, they're still in the wrong. They're not in the wrong for taking him down, but they're in the wrong for handling the situation the way Michael Bennett says they handled the situation. If that's in fact the case, it doesn't matter if Michael Bennett fit the description to a T. If this is what happened, he has a case.
Has John Burris ever lost a case?
I don't know. I haven't had time to look into the record of John Burris.
Well,
I only had time to look up who he is, where he practices, and how long he's practiced.
I understand, but citing as the veracity of these claims,
right,
the fact that there's an attorney willing to take the case.
But as an attorney is only going to take a case if you feel like you have sufficient evidence to go forward. You're not going to take a half-assed case that the judge may even throw out. First of all, the judge is going to throw it out if there's not sufficient evidence to proceed. So unless a lawyer of that caliber, I don't think would take a case unless they were sure there was a good chance they would win that case.
Why do you think we haven't heard about this before? Why do you think
today is when the lawyer made the statement?
Right, but haven't we heard anything about this happening? Nobody in Las Vegas was around, recognized Michael Bennett getting taken to the ground. If there were hundreds of people in this,
I don't know why that matters.
So let me ask you this:
I'm just wondering why. I'm just wondering why it's taken so long.
If you were a juror member, okay, and you're sitting in a Nevada courtroom, okay, and in this civil case, and Michael Bennett was able to take the witness stand and essentially testify to the salient points that are outlined here in his statement, okay? Would you feel comfortable rendering your judgment then, or would you as a jury member say, you know what, okay, that sounds really convincing, but I need to hear the defense from the Las Vegas police officers and see if there are any facts that shed light on Michael Bennett's. Would you feel comfortable just making your decision then, or would you feel compelled to wait to hear the other side?
Absolutely. As a juror, I would absolutely need to hear the other side in order to render a verdict.
But aren't we
just being the
juror
jury?
members in the court of public opinion?
No, we're not jury members.
In the court of public opinion.
We have
I'm trying to frame my opinion on what happened here. I just want to hear both sides.
We have our own free minds to decide how much and how far to believe something when we see it or read it or hear it. And I choose to believe Michael Bennett and his knowledge of the situation, having been there and having been a black man in America for 32 years, however old he is, and knowing when he's being mistreated because of his race and when he's not. I have that confidence in Michael Bennett. I have that knowledge that he's an intelligent human, a very intelligent human, and that he can distinguish the difference between being mistreated racially and not.
So if let's say I offered you,
hang on, we got to take a quick time out. Hang on to that thought. We'll wrap up this conversation in the final segment of the hour, and then we'll get to the great debate at 9 o'clock coming up on 950 KJR. Dick Fane, Hugh Millen, Slick Hawk. We'll wrap up our conversation on this on the story of the day, what will undoubtedly be the story of the day here locally, the Michael Bennett letter, the allegations that he was a victim of police abuse, excessive force in Las Vegas following a incident on Saturday, August 26th, where gunshots were fired. We're going to get some levity and back into the show in the 9 o'clock hour. Great debate.
Yeah.
I think the perfect way to get levity back into the situation,
we got some Mike Leach
is
audio
to
too,
hear is to hear Mike Leach talking about Bigfoot and aliens.
Oh, jeez.
Nothing can put a smile on somebody's face after a rough, serious hour of radio than Mike Leach addressing aliens and Bigfoot. So we will do that. We will do that after the great debate in the 9 o'clock hour. But Hugh, final thoughts on this situation before we turn the page, at least for the day.
It's very disturbing when Michael says that no matter how much money you make or whatever, when you're seen as an N-word here, you're treated that way. That just the fact that he's moved to have these thoughts, it's so distressing. It really is. Yeah. The question I was going to ask when Slick said that he'd made his mind up is if I offered you $1,000 to write down a few circumstances that might change your mind, that you could think reasonably, maybe it's as we described hypothetically, that it's a description of a suspect that meets the description of Michael Bennett. Maybe it's that there was a half a dozen other guys that were experienced same treatment and they were white. Maybe Michael Bennett is withholding some of the conduct or how he interacted with the police. I mean, is there anything where you could, because you've said, I've heard enough just because I've heard Michael Bennett's side. I don't need to hear the other side. Is there anything?
Not what I said.
Well,
that's not what I said.
Boy, that's really.
I said
that sounded kind of what you said.
I said I've heard Michael Bennett's side. I didn't say that I can't be swayed with more information. I said in this information gathering process, all the information, get as much information as possible, is a good thing. We need to do that. Now, it doesn't even mean necessarily I trust every piece of information either.
Okay, that's a different statement than you were saying in the last segment. So, okay.
Well, no, I'm saying my mind is made up to this point.
Good.
Could my mind change? Sure, my mind could change. Okay. Who am I giving the benefit of the doubt to? If we're talking about 50% on each side, who's getting my feather? Michael Bennett's getting my feather.
Oh, Michael Bennett's getting my feather
no,
too.
I'm saying if
he's getting more than my feather.
I'm saying if the Las Vegas Police Department come out, bring a case, make their side fills all the holes that we've been talking about, and makes it seem like there was no racial motivation. If it's 50-50, and I don't know which side to go, which side is best. They both present a really good case.
You're still going to lean
My
towards
feather
Michael
goes
Bennett.
to Michael Bennett.
Well, I think...
Because, it's you know what, it's 2017, and I see too many of these stories all across America, and I understand...
I'm inclined to go your way as well.
And it just... And why am I going that way this morning? And why is that my ultimate feeling right now? Look, I don't feel the need or desire to try and poke holes and to try and look for ways that this could possibly not be true or possibly be misconstrued.
Yeah,
is it poking holes if you just say, I want to hear the other side?
Yeah, I'm not trying to poke holes in Michael Bennett's story. I'm just trying to fill gaps.
Let me ask you this.
In Michael Bennett's story.
Because there's a difference between saying, I want to get more information and I need more information before I believe Michael Bennett.
Oh, no, I see what you're saying. And I believe Michael Bennett right now. And I believe what Michael Bennett believes, the reason he was sent down. I think he believes that unequivocally.
If Michael Bennett bought some property and he was framing a house and he's walking through the framing and a police officer shined a bright light, pointed a gun at him and said, get on the effing ground. You're damn right we're serious when we point a gun at you.
Like they did to you.
Clasped his hands, felt through his wallet and everything after the incident. Do you think Michael Bennett, given his proclivity to and his antennas to these type of incidents, do you think Michael Bennett would have said, see, if a white guy would have been in that framing, the police officer would have come up to him and said, sir, I need to ask you what you're doing here, and been more reasonable? Do you think Michael Bennett would have that opinion, and his opinion would have been, hey, I just had excessive police incident because I'm black? Do you think that would have been his conclusion?
I think that Michael Bennett, as intelligent as he is, and having as many years of experience walking through life as a black man, just like I would, knows when he's being the victim of racially motivated incidents and knows when he's not.
So, again, given the incident that I described, would Michael Bennett come away from that experience thinking that excessive police interaction was due to him being black?
If it wasn't, then I don't think he would.
Okay.
If it wasn't, then I don't think you would.
All right, 9 o'clock hour coming up. Great debate, and we'll lighten things up with a little Mike Leach as well on 950 KJR. Well, that was an interesting hour. Development in the last few minutes since we've taken a break. Slickhawk is posting a video right now that, of course, TMZ has acquired. I don't know how they do this, but they have acquired. What would you say, Slick? About 20 seconds of video of Michael Bennett on the ground being handcuffed by a Las Vegas police officer, and he is posting that right now on sportsradiokjr.com, so you can take a look at that. It doesn't shed a lot of extra light on what we were talking about, so I don't think we need to go further with the conversation. We've already spent about an hour on it. Mariners lose to the Astros. 3 games out in the wild card. Dogs move up to 7th in the latest AP poll. Cougs move up to 20th. Your Hawks team captains for 2017, Russell Wilson, Bobby Wagner, Cam Chancellor, John Ryan. Ezekiel Elliott, 6-game suspension upheld. However, he will be able to play on Sunday. He may be able to play all year if a temporary restraining order to block his suspension is upheld on Friday. Raiders and kicker Sebastian Janikowski at an impasse over his contract, putting the start to his season in jeopardy. Houston billionaire Tillman Fertitta purchasing the Houston Rockets for a record $2.2 billion. All right, Slickhawk, let's do a little debating here if we haven't already the last hour.
Welcome, everyone, to the official debate section of the Charter Review.
The Great Debate, brought to you by Gamble Sands Golf Course. The Inn at Gamble Sands is now open, so book your reservation at gamblesands.com.
Jane, you ignorant slut.
That's the way you do it. That's the way you debate.
And don't forget, after our debate, whether you like him or you don't like him, whether you like the Cougars or you don't like the Cougars, I have yet to find anyone that is not entertained by a good Mike Leach press conference. And we've got a few minutes of Mike Leach coming up after the great debate you're going to want to listen to on topics such as Bigfoot and aliens. Go ahead, Slickhawk, fire away.
Well, we've seen the story out of Boston and the Yankees and the Red Sox and stealing signs, Apple Watches, etc., etc. Is this an egregious violation of rules or just gamesmanship that happens in baseball?
Egregious violation of rules. When you get into the electronic part, that's where you cross the line.
Yep.
Hey, you don't cross from the sidelines. Football players try and steal signs and what have you. But when you start videotaping, that's not just an arbitrary line of demarcation. That's from a rule standpoint and an impermissibility standpoint. That's where it breaks.
Yeah, the Major League Baseball has come out and said there's nothing wrong with stealing signs. We have no law, we have no rule against stealing signs, but there is a hard and fast rule that when you use electronics, that's when you cross over into illegality. Has there ever been a situation where you were playing for a team, and obviously you don't have to mention the team if you don't. Have you ever a situation where you either thought or you heard or you know for a fact that there was something fishy going on that you guys were doing or were doing against you?
Well, yeah, we had the sense that people stole signs. I mean, I remember playing at Stanford. Our audible for a quick out was we said green was the live color and 96 was the audible, and I called green 96 and their right corner to my left side, he jumped the play and it was almost a pick, and there was no doubt that he fired his gun in a way that was just beyond the standard, and so I went to the sideline.
Where the ball was
Gary
going.
Pinkel was the quarterback coach, later the head coach of Missouri. I said, Coach Pink, I said, I'm certain that they have our audible sign, or our our code. And we said, all right, let's next series
out and up,
go a few times. Yeah, we'll just go yell green 96, but tell Danny Green, don't run the out, run an out and up.
Yep.
And
touchdown.
So third or fourth play of the series, yelled green 96, and the guy jumped up on it hard, and Danny, it was the easiest touchdown pass I ever threw in my life. I mean,
you walk it to him, huh?
Just lay it out there like it's pat and go at the beginning of practice, and so yeah, I mean it happens, and hopefully you can make people pay for it, but that's yeah, I mean, people are going to be compelled to get any advantage they can.
God, I love Danny Green. I think Danny Green was my favorite Husky at that time.
He was smooth.
Loved Danny Green. All right, what do you got?
In anticipation of Hurricane Irma, the NFL has decided to postpone the Dolphins and Bucs game until Week 11 of this season, rendering both teams without a bye week during the season. Is this the right decision, or should they have moved the game somewhere that won't be threatened by the hurricane so that both teams can maintain their bye?
Well, like what I talked about to our schnoz guest, Josh Friedman from Miami today, I think it's better for the Dolphins to play 16 games in a row and have 8 home games and 8 road games than it is for the Dolphins to have that bye week but play only 7 home games, 8 road games, and a neutral site game. I think that extra home game is very, very valuable and potentially more valuable than having that extra bye week.
Yeah, I think it's debatable. As I mentioned in the previous segment, I went through this with the Patriots. We were supposed to play the Dolphins, and we took our bye week 1. I bet if you and I played on the Dolphins too. I bet if you polled the Dolphins, I bet they'd rather play now
and have the bye week
because their home field advantage. It ain't CenturyLink.
That's true. That's true. I may be a little jaded as to what home field advantage means in the NFL.
I think if they had the option to go up to Carolina or over to New Orleans or Atlanta or something and play a game, they'd probably rather play now and preserve their bye week.
Well, I'm wondering, did he say that Jacksonville was open? I guess I could check here and see if Jacksonville's got a home game, or maybe Jacksonville's too close to the story. Yeah, the Jacksonville Jaguars are on the road. I mean, the Dolphins potentially could have gone to Jacksonville, but then the question is there Are there just as many Tampa fans that go to Jacksonville, and does that turn it into a home game for Tampa?
And I don't know how far-reaching the storm is.
But it's a tough situation. Just fortunately, I mean, I think the NFL made the right move because they could have been in a whole heap of trouble had they not had the same bye weeks.
Well,
I mean, they would have been forced to play this week.
I assume they'll make more money this way.
Yeah, because you're going to have a home game.
If they had rescheduled 4 days in advance.
Oh, yeah.
Let's say they played it at Carolina.
Well, maybe not, because those Dolphin tickets are probably already sold, but then you have to give the money back, though, I guess. Yeah.
The Mariners, in a surprise move, decided to move Mike Leake back a day or two. Meanwhile, Andrew Moore is going to be replacing Giovanni Gallardo in the rotation. He'll be pitching tonight's game against the Houston Astros. Do you feel any more confident with rookie Andrew Moore in the rotation than you do with Giovanni Gallardo in the rotation?
Oh, I thought you were going to ask if I feel more confident than Mike Leake, and that would be an easy answer.
Well, that'd be a no.
No.
That'd be a no.
Do we know why they pushed Mike Leake back?
I think they're just trying to set up for the Angels series. They have, trying to gain games on a team that's ahead of you in the wild card.
Okay.
And
therefore punting this series with the Astros.
I mean, yeah. It's better to lose against a team that's not in it than in the race against you.
Because it sure looked like they were punting last night. I got to be honest. When I see names like Garton, who I'd never even heard of, and Simmons, who'd been on the shelf all year long, pitching in a 3-1 baseball game in the 8th and 9th inning, a game that was not in any stretch of the imagination over. Now, they pitched well. They pitched a scoreless 8th and 9th, but they very easily
got the job done.
They very easily could have given up 5 runs too.
Well, so could anybody. I mean, there are pitchers you pitch when you're ahead, and there's pitchers you pitch when you're behind. They were behind, so that's when you pitch those guys. The Vincents and the Diazes, Pagans. You pitch those guys. Those are your best guys. You pitch them when you're tied or you're ahead. And that's when you're going to use them.
Are they going to be tied or ahead in this? Are they going to be ahead in this series in late games where we can even use those guys? Or are they just going to sit all week long?
I hope so.
I mean, so too.
It's hard to say.
No, I think they have. Do they have a better or worse chance than with Moore than with Gallardo? I would say they have the same chance. I would say they have a 30% chance of winning today, maybe slightly more, just because I do believe in the odds of a home team rarely gets swept. Even if they're the worst, if they're a worse team than the team they're playing, a home team rarely gets swept just because you have that sense of desperation in the third game. The road team is like, hey, we've already taken the first 2. We got this series wrapped up, especially in the case of Houston where they've wrapped up a playoff spot, a division championship. Yeah, they're still playing for seeding, but they're not playing for nearly as much as the Mariners are. But if you're just asking the question Moore versus Gallardo, I would say it's the same minimal chance that you get a good start out of either one of those guys, which is unfortunate to say because, we thought Andrew Moore was going to be something, and Andrew Moore in his first 3 starts went 7 innings, 3 runs, 8 innings, 3 runs, 6 innings, 3 runs. And since then, it has been an unmitigated disaster. 3 innings, 5 runs, 6 innings, 5 runs, 6 2/3, 4 runs, 1 2/3, 4 runs. I mean, his ERA is over 7. Actually, it's over 8 since June. So, brutal. Absolutely brutal. I assume Hugh doesn't want to answer this question, so we'll just move on since it's a Mariner.
Right.
It's a Mariner-related question.
We have, gentlemen, a showdown.
Oh, we got to do the long-term one now?
After a long-term showdown question.
This is a big one, man.
Yeah. This could be a true debate here.
Okay.
For the long term, and just to remind you what's at stake, we are currently sitting in third, but we're just out of second place.
All right.
The long-term question, which I just had. Now it's gone. Give me 1 second.
Had something to do with the division winners, didn't it?
I think it's NFC. That's just what I have to check on. Which 6 teams Name the 6 NFC only playoff qualifiers for 2017. Now, two points for each one you get right, -2 for each one you get wrong.
Okay, I will give you a team, and I'll start with my most confident to least confident.
Yes.
And I need a yes from you or a no from you, and I need a yes for you or a no from you if you think they're a playoff team.
Okay.
All right? Because this way we should be able to at least easily get the first 4, and then we may come up with a discussion.
All right.
Number 1, I am the most confident of all. Based upon the division they play in, not because necessarily I think they're the best team in the conference. I want to make that perfectly clear. I think the Seattle Seahawks have the best chance of any team in the NFC to make the playoffs.
I'll say yes.
Hugh, are the Seahawks a playoff team? Yeah. All right, we got one. We don't have to put these in order, right?
No,
we just
no
need
order.
Okay. The second team I am most confident in, and the team that I think will end with the best record in the NFC, by the way, the Green Bay Packers, who will make the playoffs for the 8th consecutive year.
Yes.
All right? Now it gets a little trickier. I'm eliminating, at least right now from the discussion, I'm eliminating the rest of the NFC West. I am eliminating the Redskins, the Eagles, the Bears. That leaves still quite a few teams. I think Atlanta will take a dip, but I
think the Panthers are going to win that division.
What about the Bucks? Hugh, do you like the Bucks, the Panthers, or the Falcons? Tampa's on the rise, but are they on the rise enough that they can win that division? The thing with the South, it seems like a different team wins the South every year.
Yeah, I think Tampa's on the rise. Yep.
I like Tampa, Slick.
To make the playoffs?
I like Tampa to make the playoffs.
To win the division, though? Or as a wild card? I like them as a wild card. Kind of.
There's just a whole lot of teams in that they could be 7-9, but they could also be 9-7. And we're talking about the Giants, the Cowboys, the Eagles, the Redskins, the Lions, the Vikings, the Saints, the Bucks, the Panthers. I mean, the Falcons should be good enough to at least make the playoffs again, right? I mean, I think they're going to take a dip, but are they going to take that big of a dip?
Well, there's Super Bowl hangover. There is new offense.
But they got a young defense and they got running backs.
Yeah.
I mean, they went 11-5.
Talent-wise, yeah, unless they have some type of Super Bowl hangover.
So we can put them in.
Let's put the Falcons and the Bucks both in. Let's say a wild card comes from that division. You guys good with that?
Yeah, I think so.
This is sounding a lot like a prediction.
Well, but sometimes we're going to have some predictions. Sometimes we're going to have predictions. It's just the way it is.
And then,
you guys can do whatever you want.
What else do you think? Cowboys?
I'm just saying, as far as
you helped us out. You agreed that I just asked you if you thought the Tampa Bay was a playoff team.
Cowboys, Giants.
So we got 1, 2, 3, 4 in right now. We need one more wild card
and an East winner.
And we have the Vikings, the Lions, the Giants, and the Cowboys to pick from. If we think we don't think the Redskins or the Eagles are going, even though you love Kirk Cousins.
Right,
you're a big Kirk Cousins fan.
I am.
Everybody's hot on the Giants. Everybody seems to love the Giants.
I like the Giants. They're better defensively.
God, if I knew if Ezekiel Elliott was playing 16 games, I would pick the Dallas Cowboys. If Ezekiel Elliott is going to play only 10 games, then I would lean.
Pick them?
No, I think I'd lean towards the Giants winning that division. I think it's close enough that Zeke not playing 6 games would make the difference. But they can still be a wild card. So is it just safer for us to say Cowboys, Giants, both in?
I think so.
All right. I can do that. Cowboys, Giants in. Packers in. Falcons, Bucks in. Seahawks in.
And you don't think Panthers? A resurgent, healthy Cam Newton.
No.
Big weapon with Christian McCaffrey. A little bit of a revamped offense. Luke Kuechly back healthy.
No, they'll be better than last year. The only thing with them won 6 games last year.
Yeah.
They'll be better. But I don't think they'll be there. Right. So there's our 6. Cowboys, Giants, Packers, Falcons, Bucks, Seahawks. Not necessarily in that order. 9:22 on 950 KJR. Should we get a little levity with our friend Mike Leach?
Let's get
piratey. Let's get piratey in the next segment. Whether you like Leach or not, whether you're a Cougar or a Husky or somewhere in between, you will want to hear what Mike Leach had to say in his press conference yesterday. Coming up next on 950 KJR. It can mean one of only two things.
That's true.
One, Captain Jack Sparrow has just entered the studio.
Which I would like, by the way. I would enjoy that.
You and I were at the last movie.
Yeah.
We were together, but not really together.
Right. We were right next to each other.
You were like down the row with a lovely blonde.
Yes.
I was also with a lovely blonde.
That's true.
But I had two little kids, too.
We had a couple chillins.
We had a couple little chillins with that lovely blonde. So it was not technically a date night.
I don't have any of those with my blonde.
Maybe with some other blondes?
No.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. So that's one thing it could mean. Or the second thing it could mean is it's time to hear from the pirate of the Palouse, Mike Leach. And this is a portion, about a 3-minute portion of his...
Yeah, it's a couple minutes.
Couple-minute portion of his entertaining press conference. They're always very entertaining. Here he is.
I hope there's Bigfoot. I don't think there is. The reason I don't think there is because we've found bones of dinosaurs and everything else, but we haven't found bones that I've heard of Bigfoot. Aliens, I suspect there is, and I don't know that they're little green men, and I don't know that they're specifically in our galaxy. Why wouldn't God build other Earths and other places? Why only this one? You know? And even if you're an evolution guy and lightning striking mud and, you know, popping in, I mean, and then, well, they say, well, the notion of God is far-fetched. Oh, really? Striking mud and then light, you know, sparking out of there and then it going like that? Well, I mean, that's just such an obvious, easy path to follow. I don't know that they would, you know, just be hostile mutants and the rest, you know. They might look, you know, remarkably like us, where style-wise or something they evolved a different direction, maybe buildings, cars, different, who knows, you know. But I certainly wouldn't rule out, I certainly wouldn't rule out life somewhere else other than just Earth, because, see, to me that seems like a lot less of a stretch than the notion that, oh, we're the only one. We're the only one special enough that lightning struck a puddle of mud. Or we're the only one special enough that God cares about enough to have life on this planet. Say, I don't believe that. I mean, everybody wants to be special, but I don't think we're that special. So that's what I think.
That's good.
There's so many things
Talk about special.
I like about listening to Mike Leach. One, it does not matter what he's talking about. He always has the same intonation.
Yeah.
The same tempo, the same intonation. He never gets too fast. He never gets too slow. He never gets too fired up. He never is. It is just, it's all the same.
Right.
He could be talking about a 4-3 defense or Bigfoot. It's always the same.
Or fat little girlfriends.
It's always deadpan. I love the fact that he has to clear his throat every 5 seconds. He'll talk and it's like, and this and he has no problem doing it right in the microphone.
Yep.
It's all the time. He's perpetually coughing. It's just, it's quality entertainment, Hugh.
Yeah, and I think through all the kind of the humorous delivery, I think there's a lot of logic there. I would agree with most of what he said.
As far as us being not that special, but not that special.
As far as Bigfoot, yeah, we got the dinosaur bones, but we don't have Bigfoot bones.
Yeah,
I think that's
fair.
If you're talking about evidences, that's number one. And talking about him kind of being very cynical.
But wait a second, if Bigfoot has never died, if there's just one Bigfoot out there and he's never died, then we wouldn't have
who
bones.
Who was Bigfoot's predecessors?
He just came lightning in the mud, man.
Lightning in the mud.
Well,
lightning in the mud.
I totally agree with his cynicism about a naturalistic explanation for first life. I'm totally in lockstep with him on that.
Okay.
As it pertains to aliens, I will say now he didn't talk about the chances we'll ever encounter them. I think that is a lot more difficult when you consider, just look at the distances of the galaxies, and somebody's going to have to conquer. Some entity's going to have to conquer light travel.
Continuum, yes.
And but the existence, that kind of depends probably on what religion you'd follow if you're religiously inclined. So that one I'm a little bit more up in the air. But those are all just everybody's personal.
Well, you can be religiously inclined and still believe that there's life elsewhere. Nowhere in the Bible does it say there's aliens, but nowhere in the Bible does it say there's not aliens.
Yeah, man, there's suggestions from mankind. Yeah,
right.
You couldn't come away with an unequivocal conclusion on that. I guess you could say, but in any event, I agree with him more than I disagree with him.
What do you think of his football team, Hugh? We're going to spend a lot of time Thursday and Friday talking about the Seahawks-Packers. We're going to spend some time talking about the Huskies in Montana. We're probably not going to spend a lot of time talking about what is a pretty big interconference game. I mean, you got on Saturday night, ESPN, 7:30 start. It'll be kind of the game that's on at that time in a game that was very hotly contested last year with Boise State. They had them on the blue turf last year. I remember watching that game. It was a 7:30 start that night too, and Boise State got way up, and the Cougs came back and almost knocked off a ranked opponent. So this is a good test. And hey, like I said at the beginning of the week, I'll be rooting for the Cougs. I root for the Pac-12. I need the teams that my Huskies play to be highly ranked. And so I need the Cougs for my own selfish reasons. I need the Cougs to beat Boise State on Saturday night.
What about the argument that you'd want Washington to be in a position where they just kind of dominate the state and they can get any recruit really within the fence of the state of Washington?
They're going to anyway.
Sure about that?
They always have, and they always will.
Mark Rippon?
Well, not every single
Drew Bledsoe?
Not every single player, but they are always going to dominate the state when it comes to recruiting because I've got 60 years of history that tells me that they are going to dominate the state.
Yeah, if Washington State were to come on and be perennially competitive, you don't think Washington would lose some recruits? Marcus Trufant's of the world?
They're always going to lose some recruits. They're going to lose some recruits if Washington is perpetually 11-1 and the Cougs are perpetually 5-6. They're still going to lose some recruits. But what I'm saying is I need the Huskies to have a strength of schedule where at the end of the year the talking heads aren't saying, well, they haven't played anybody. Look at this. They played only 2 teams this year that were even ranked. You look at their schedule. They played Stanford, it's potential they could play one team all season that's ranked.
Washington State in a better position than they were as a Husky fan. Would you want Washington State to be positioned higher than they were going into the Apple Cup a year ago?
Positioned higher?
My recollection is that they were fairly highly positioned.
Yeah, they were like what? 18th, 19th, or something. They were coming off.
What was the record?
Well, they were coming off a loss to Colorado, which was stinging.
Okay, but what was
they
their
were
record?
They were 8-3 coming into. I think that's
what
perfect.
was their conference record?
7-1.
So 7-1. Would you want them better than 7-1?
Well, as long as I was better than them, I wouldn't really care.
All right.
I wouldn't really care. I think the best Apple Cups are the Apple Cups where both teams are good.
Okay.
Those are in my mind, those are the best Apple Cups. Now,
they're the best games.
They're the best games, and I think it's best for the state. I think it's best for the conference. I think it's best for the state. I think it's good for the Pac-12 that it's not just USC. I think it's good for the Pac-12 to have a Washington and then to have a Stanford and then to have a second tier of Washington State and Utah and Colorado and UCLA that are all vying for top 25 status.
You're a Washington fan. You're a Washington
Yes,
alum. Would you rather have the Cougars in a relatively down state where over the next 10 years you're going to go 10-0 against the Cougars, or would you rather have the Cougars in a more elevated state where the Apple Cups are good and you go something like 7-3 or 8-2 over the next 10 years?
Well, all I know is that the Cougars have been pretty good the last 5 or 6 years, and they've had a hell of a time even coming close to beating Washington.
Back to my question: Would you rather go?
Well, I never want to lose Apple Cups, of course.
Okay,
but I know as a Husky fan, I am very convinced that as long as that guy's the head coach over there, Chris Peterson, that I'm going to be fine and I'm going to be superior to Wazoo anyway. Whether Wazoo's 5-6 going into the Apple Cup or whether they're 9-2 going to the Apple Cup, I know I'm going to be better than them, and I know I'm going to have more talent than them. Now, could they knock me off in a given game? Sure, it's football. You can win a given game. You can win a given rivalry game. But I'm going to feel confident going into that weekend every single year. And I should. Look at the history. Look what Mike Leach has done against Washington. Bup and kiss against Washington.
Well, of course. But I'm just talking about, is the Cougar program on the ascension?
No, I think the Cougar program is where it's going to be under Mike Leach, and that is a good bowl caliber, but nothing more than that team. Now this year they could pop.
So Mike Leach can't take them to a state like they won 10 games 3 years in a row.
No,
Mike Leach cannot do that.
I don't think so. I don't think he gets the talent in other areas. I mean, he's gonna put up 50 points a game, but I don't think he is. I don't think he is the complete recruiter where he can build a team in Pullman, Washington, that can consistently win double-digit games. That's my own. That's my opinion. I think he's good. I think he's good. I think he's a good coach. I think he's good for the program. I think he's probably about as good as they can do over there. And I kind of like where the Cougs are right now. They're competitive. They rise the tide of the Pac-12. They're not a doormat. They're not Oregon State. They're another team that could go into a game like this against Boise and get a solid non-conference win.
Where's the game?
At Wazoo.
Okay.
At Wazoo. So they should win it.
Well, their pass offense is an interesting study. The numbers speak for themselves, and I think philosophically, the amount that they allow their receivers to adjust their routes, there's all kinds of route adjustments for them, and you get a great debate. Some coaches prefer just lock the receivers, let the quarterback know they can play with anticipation because they know the receivers have no reads. They're going to be precisely where they're supposed to be. Some coordinators really prefer that. Then you listen to a Mike Leach in a clinic, and he says, "Hey, we're going to where's the open grass?" And our guys, why go to a place where we're going to be covered when we can go over there, and there's open grass? Which you say, well, boy, that sounds logical. Okay, the execution of that can be a little bit of a stumbling block because you have one of three components to a defense in the mind of a receiver who has to make that adjustments. It's either unequivocally, like for example. I'll take a real simple example. On their four verticals, their outside guys, teams will say, "Hey, you're either locked on a go route or you're locked on a comeback." Mm-hmm. Okay, and those would be different plays, but the quarterback would know, "Hey, my guy's either running a go route up the sideline or he's going to stop at some depth. Might be 12, might be 17, whatever that is." Well, in the case of the Cougars, it's more like 14. What the Cougars do is they say, when you run, make a decision at 10 yards, whether or not you think you can win. If you think you can win, you keep going up the sideline. Mm-hmm. If you don't think you can win, then you stop. And if you make the decision at 10, that'll take you to 14. You fall out at 14. It's great when you can fully think that you can beat the guy. No question. Oh, I got this guy, and then you go. And then the quarterback and the receiver are on the same page. And it's also great when the DB is so far off, the receiver's going, no chance. I got no chance to cap this guy. I'm doing my fallout. The quarterback sees it. He throws it out there. They're on the same page. They can play with anticipation. Both of those two examples, one a go, one a fallout comeback, the quarterback and the receiver can play with anticipation. For those who don't like this type of offense, it's in the gray area. What if that cornerback, while he's backpedaling, is an area I'm not sure if I can beat him? Now all of a sudden, if there's hesitation, is the quarterback eyeballing and taking an extra hitch and taking a step and not being able to play with the timing you want? Right. So it's in that gray area. Now, I just cited one example, but in their offense, they have seemingly countless examples, but certainly numerous examples where the subjectivity for the receiver is there in terms of how he runs his route. So the idea, hey, we go get grass, philosophically, find grass, take grass.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it sounds great. The execution of it. The Huskies right now have shown that they have a good handle over the last couple of years of being able to lock that down, being aware of the type of reads, and being able to defend that.
It'll be interesting. The thing that I think will keep the Cougars down this year is their schedule. I mean, they've got USC on their schedule. Washington doesn't. They go to Autzen Stadium. They wrap up the season at Arizona, Stanford, at Utah, at Washington. 3 out of 4 road games, 2 of the 3 teams being pretty darn good teams. That's the only thing that I think that keeps the Cougars from being a serious shot. I thought they had a serious shot to win the Pac-12 North. Last year at this time, I said Washington and Washington State will be playing for the Pac-12 North Championship in the Apple Cup, and that turned out to be the case. I don't necessarily think that will be the case this year because I think the Cougs will probably fall short of that. Hey, you can't say we don't talk Cougar football. How about that? Hugh Millen and Dick Fain just talked Cougar football for 10 minutes. It's 9:45. Final segment coming up before Chuck and Buck on 950 KJR. Well, what did we learn today? Let's see. We learned that Hugh Millen needs a Hugh-mobile. We learned that, like Phillip Rivers has. We learned that Sheldon Richardson thinks the Seahawks are crazy in a good way, which we kind of all agree with, right? I think crazy in a good way is a pretty good, apt description for our football team.
No, it's a good first impression. I like it.
Crazy in a good way. We obviously learned the not funny story that we talked about the entire 8 o'clock hour, which was that we now have video of this up on sportsradiokjr.com of Michael Bennett getting forcefully handcuffed in Las Vegas on the night of August the 26th, a occurrence to which he has written about a 7-paragraph description that I have tweeted out on my Twitter. Guess we could put this on the website too as well, Slickhawk, with the video. We should put the letter up as well so people can go there and read what he had to say about how he was treated. So obviously more to get to there. We learned that
the TM video is up.
Yeah, but I mean the letter as well as the video. We put the letter up on
the letter's up, the video's up.
Oh, they're both up. Okay,
great.
Great. So that's the one-stop shop, sportsradiokjr.com for that. We learned that in Fact or Fiction today, I picked a bad team to cover the point spread. We'll see if that works out. They're getting 7 points at home. I always love a home dog of a touchdown or more in the NFL. One thing that we have not gotten to yet, speaking of bad football teams, I read this on ESPN.com yesterday. The NFL season is kicking off this week with something special, a potentially historic Super Bowl long shot that could actually be a double-digit underdog against the Cleveland Browns. Now let that rattle around in your brain for a second. There was no bigger underdog on a week-by-week basis last year than the Cleveland Browns.
Sure.
And they are facing a team in the New York Football Jets that when kickoff comes, they could be a double-digit favorite against. The Jets have been installed as 1,000 to 1 to win the Super Bowl. Longer than any odds in the history of the Super Bowl era. No team has ever been 4 digits to 1 to start the season. In fact, last year, we all thought, remember how bad we thought the Browns and the Niners were last year to start the season? And they were 5 times better chance to win the Super Bowl. 5 times better at 200 to 1 than the Jets.
So my debate question I never got to yesterday.
Yes.
What kind of odds would you have to be getting to put $100 down on the New York Jets to win the Super Bowl?
If I had to bet it,
you have to do
1,000 to 1.
Way more than 1,000 to 1. Probably, it'd have to be an amount of money that would change my life.
100,000 to 1.
100,000. It would have to be. It would have to be at least 10,000 to 1. So I'd get $100,000 in return. I'm like, okay, I could, but I'd have a better chance of playing the lottery, wouldn't I?
10,000 to 1, you'd get $1 million.
10,000 to 1, you'd get $1 million
on $100. Yeah.
How about this? The Jets are in New England on Week 17. If all goes to form, what we think the New England will be in Week 17, probably 13-2, and the Jets are potentially 0-15 or 1-14. The biggest point spread ever in the history of point spreads in the NFL is a 28-point spread in 1968 between the Baltimore Colts and Johnny Unitas and the Atlanta Falcons, the expansion Atlanta Falcons. Vegas is projecting that the Jets could be the biggest underdog in the history of any NFL game on that day in New England. Now, New England may not be playing for anything.
We talked about
day.
the Jets and their $69 million salary dump. But, boy, Woody Johnson, he of Johnson & Johnson fame?
Yes, sir.
The Q-tips. Every time you put
Isn't
a
he our
Q-tip
ambassador
in,
to, like, England or something like that?
Something. Every time you put a Q-tip in your ear, you're helping the Jets' cause. So,
they're going to be putting Q-tips in their ear.
They need a lot more Q-tips.
Great stuff, Hugh. Tomorrow we really get into it. Thursday, Friday is when we get into it. We get into Huskies. We get into Seahawks. It's 12-man roundtable. It's Jason Lock and 4 at 9 o'clock. Football season is here. We will get it on at 6 a.m. tomorrow. Chuck and Bucker next.